forgot to.
Actually, you might have sent it to me that Friday.
That's all right. It didn't. Yeah. No. All right, we'll go ahead and get started if Jason is ready. I did want to say, I think Kirk will be just a little bit late. He had something come up, but he said he would be here when he can. I don't know exactly what happened with our food, which was supposed to be here at 4.
He was thinking 5, so he popped it in the oven and they'll bring it over when it's done. You won't go hungry.
It's just one of those rainy, it's been Monday like all week, last week and this week. So, but we will get the food. And then I just wanted to tell you, just, you know, when you want to get up and get something to eat, get up and get something to eat. What we want to do today in the working session is really, we'll be presenting some information, which hopefully will help to refine and develop our strategic plan as we move forward. If you have any questions at all, make sure that you ask questions. I mean, it's interactive, make comments. They have some really good information, and I appreciate the folks that are presenting because they put together, like I said, the information that I think will be very helpful as we look at how we fulfill our mission, our vision, and our core values. And so, you know, once we fulfill that mission, I guess that's really, we have to be able to support that with our core values and our vision, and that's what we're looking to do. Now, the next work session we have will be in June, so we're going to present information and, of course, like we said, certainly ask questions. And then in June, we will come back and hopefully it'll give you some time to formulate things that you want to introduce in terms of vision or mission. And at that point, if it is a budgetary issue, we'll still have an opportunity to get it in the budget. We really probably before June won't have much time. We won't have the information too much on the budget because, as I said, it takes a while to get that information together, put it to the county. And as you know, because of the changes last year in budgeting at the state level, it's pushed it all back a little bit later. So we'll get back together for one of these working sessions in June, if that works with everybody's schedule, and move forward from there. On the mission, of course, I think that the mission we looked at, I forget the timeline when we did that, but probably 3 or 4.
February of 2018.
February of 2018. He's like the old guy that remembers the weather back in 1952. Okay. The mission, of course, pretty much it just talks about student and community needs and the fact that we are here to provide those affordable quality opportunities for our students and, of course, the community as a whole. The core values, we actually developed those a couple of years ago. I say we, the board and the staff got in on that. But certainly personal success and growth is huge in what we do. Integrity and respect, I think that that's really critical to the success of any institution and any business in terms of being able to work together. Diversity and inclusion, something that we work on often, is important because, again, it brings a different and broader perspective for our students and our community when we have diversity and inclusion here. And we're proud of what we have done. There's certainly more that we need to do. And then stewardship. And I think with stewardship, for me, it's that thoughtful, data-driven process and responsible management of all of our resources. Sometimes that's the hardest thing. You know, we can't always look at the individual tree. We do have to look at the forest and make sure, of course, we're taking care of all of those things as we move forward. I would like to say that the greatest asset that we have here at Fort Scott Community College is our personnel. and that is our faculty, our staff, but also our students. They are by far and away the greatest asset, and that also includes the community. And so that's really the biggest thing that we have going for us. The vision that we've always had is students first and community always. And that vision, again, my vision has always been sustainability and constructive change. Now, it doesn't, we don't want change for change, but we do want programs, and we want the institution to be sustainable and to have constructive change. We certainly are here because we are here to provide opportunities for students, for the community, and of course, with that comes a very large economic impact that we have on this, not just Bourbon County or Fort Scott, but really on the area. So I am going to talk just a little bit about capital improvement projects, and then I'm going to turn it over to Ralph. But if you'll turn the page on that agenda that I gave you. Now, we have other capital improvement projects, but these are projects that I identified once we started having federal money come in that I felt were critical really to the success and sustainability of Fort Scott Community College. And it's a little bit confusing, but right at the top, you'll see that the grant funding that we have was $5,085,000. Now that is institutional money. So that does not include the student dollars that we have received. Of that money we have spent, and this is a little bit old, but we've spent approximately $2,700,000. Most of that money went towards technical upgrades to help with virtual learning. We've put in Zoom rooms. I can assure you that Jason could speak more intelligently about this than I can, but lots and lots of those types of things. We also used $400,000 of that to buy Garrison apartments and to some more money of that to remodel them. That, of course, qualified for federal money. HERF money, what it stands for is Higher Education Emergency Relief Fund. And so these dollars that we're talking about are HERF dollars. With those HERF dollars, you have to qualify due to their criteria. The first, there's really three groups of money that we got. The first dollars that we got were very, very restrictive. Really, it couldn't be spent on anything except personal, what do we call that? Equipment to keep you safe. PPE. Oh yeah, that's it. PPE. Sorry, couldn't think of that. So we spent, it was the PPE stuff, and that's really all you could spend it on. So it was very restrictive. Then they started opening it up, and you could spend it on some technology, which we did. We were able to redo, for instance, the auditorium. Now that took a while, but we were able to do several things that allowed us, because we use that as a classroom then, we were able to use those dollars. Now, the second HERF money came along, and like I said, the restrictions opened up a little bit, and in the second and third HERF dollars that we received, they allowed us to move money to the general fund based on revenue losses due to COVID. So we determined our revenue losses and moved 2/3 of that to the general fund, which is what everybody did, because once you move it to the general fund, then we can use that money for other things, and we're trying to use that for capital improvement. So if you look down there under project, the first project that it details is the Bailey remodel. The Bailey remodel is $1,200,000 without the snack bar, because we pulled that out separately because of HERF dollars. I use $640,000 out of the general fund that was moved to the general fund from HERF money due to the fact that we could, based on our revenue losses, because of course of the huge enrollment loss. $560,000 of that is from Mr. and Mrs. Robert Bailey. So Bob and Sylvia Bailey, which is amazing. They gave $500,000, but it's been sitting there, and so it has gained. And actually, in the end, it'll be a little bit more than 560. It's closer to 600,000. The snack bar, with the snack bar, it is $1,600,000, but we can use HERF money specifically for the snack bar because that will be run as part of our cafeteria, and our students will have a flex card. So when we sign our cafeteria contract, they will be able to have some fruit or a sandwich or something along that line that will be over there at the snack bar. And so anything that we did to spread students out and to space students out, those are allowable under our HERF dollars. So that's the reason that cafeteria remodel, snack bar, those are allowable funds. It's called a snack bar. I call it the snack bar. What is it really called? I don't know. We'll call it the snack bar. Janet,
the daily grind.
Daily
or something.
grind.
It's more of a
Something.
coffee shop
Yeah,
kind of.
we don't have a formal name
Yeah.
for it right now.
I like snack bars.
actually, the HVAC systems, because with the HVAC system, it will have implemented in it new and upgraded controls for any kind of, toxins, I guess. I don't want to say toxins, but the air. It does a better job of filtering the air. And so they estimate that at 300,000 and then 100,000 for the snack bar. So both of those are qualifiable HERF dollars. So when it says funding, a direct grant, so that 300,000 for the HVAC system in Bailey, which will be all of Bailey, not just the remodel, and then the 100,000 for the snack bar, which is over there. That brings that total for the Bailey remodel to 1.6 million. So in the end, what we will be using direct HERF dollars of 400,000, HERF money, so it's federal money that got moved to the general fund for 640,000, and then the 560,000 donated dollars. So that's an approximation of how the Bailey remodel will work. The Arnold Arena, east side, of course, the basketball area, we estimate that will be about a $250,000 cost, and that will put HVAC in Arnold Arena, not on the rodeo side, but of course in the actual where the basketball court is. That's direct funding, of course, because again, that qualifies. We believe that that's something that has needed to be done for a long time. It will make that building much more usable. We just got a request the other day, but they're like, no, we don't want to use anything that's not air conditioned. We could even use it for graduation where we would just have one graduation because it would seat a lot more. But, the fact that it hasn't been air conditioned has been problematic. Not only that, the floor that we put down, it will help with the floor. And trust me, those guys that practice in there in the summertime and volleyball and basketball that play into the fall this particular year, man, it was very, very hot in there. At one time, it wasn't so bad, but when we put offices up there used to be a circulating fan up there that pulled the air up and out. But when they put the offices up there, do you know what I'm talking about? They had to shut that all off. And so there's no way to pull air through that thing, which would make it a whole lot more comfortable, but with that, you couldn't do it. The cafeteria remodel, we estimate the cost to be about 900,000. I did learn today from Great Western, and I don't think we had that on the agenda tonight to talk about the Great Western contract, which of course is the third-party food provider we have for the cafeteria. But it was still just a draft. They offered us a 5 and a 10-year contract. I think we would propose the 5-year. At one time, they were going to give us more money. So they were going to give us 200,000 towards the remodel. Well, they backed that up to 100,000. And I don't want to go a 10-year contract for, and lock yourself in. And then they amortize it out. And so you would only get, whatever, you'd get 20,000 a year if it was 200,000, but this would only get 10,000 a year. For a 10-year contract, he's willing to give us 100,000 for a 5-year contract. So to me, that doesn't make much sense, but he'll give us 20,000 a year for 5 years, which would help towards the remodel. The thing is, if you go 10 years and he gives us the money, let's say we get another third-party vendor in here that can do our food, they'd have to buy out Great Western's contribution. And so it would really tie our hands in terms of being able to negotiate a contract. So I don't think the 10-year would work for us, but we will bring that to you the next board meeting. He did get me some draft contracts, like I said, but there was no way to get you a final one for tonight. I had a placeholder there on the board agenda, but decided not to go with that. And then the last thing on there is our ERP which I'll just be honest, Adam and Jason will have to tell you, it's the upgrade to our current student data system. I have in there 2 million. It's probably way more than that, to be honest with you. With that, remember that we will have a yearly subscription cost, which will also increase once we upgrade. What we use now is a system called Poise, which is part of the Genzabar package. And Genzabar, they're a good company. They're good to work with, but Poise is it's a dinosaur in terms of a student data system. There's only 12 places left in the nation that still use Poise. And so when we have issues, again, just getting somebody that knows how to do the fix on it can be quite difficult. So if we can get a new ERP, it's the little things that you don't think about. We have to re-enter, for instance, data many times as opposed to it going into the system and then being shared, for instance, from the business office to the financial aid office to the registrar's office, et cetera, et cetera. One of the things that you wouldn't think would be an issue is just little things. For instance, when we take students' photo IDs in a typical system, in an upgraded system, that student ID then would go along, that photo would go along with their information. So like now, if I want to pull up a student's identification, which I can do, there's no photo there, which is kind of a security thing for us because I don't know who, what this person looks like. And sometimes we need to know that, if there's a security threat of some sort. I mean, that's it seems like a minor thing, but it's many, many of those things. That is the reason that we could definitely use a new ERP. We would better be able to report. I think one of the critical things that we've got to do is to be able to look at data, analyze that data, and see what it's telling us. We have a lot of data in the system. It's very difficult to get to, and it's not interfaced with Windows. And so you have to be able to program to get any kind of data out of the thing at all. And we really don't have, we just don't have the resources to do that. Obviously, Jacob Riker does a good job. But there's still a lot of stuff that he doesn't know either because many of those programs were written by a previous employee and it may even have a label on it that nobody else would recognize. So the data's there, the report's been done, but we can't get to it. So to be able to develop those reports and stuff, we've really got to upgrade that system. Anyway, altogether, we could use a couple more $1 million in HERF funding, but you can see that the total funding that we would need, or the total cost, is $4,750,000. Remember that we already used $2,700,000, and so I need another couple million, and that's for the ERP. But I can tell you that I personally believe that these projects that we have in here and the ERP really are critical and something that we badly need. So, any questions about any of that? Anything that I can clarify or?
I do have a comment on whatever you've done in Bailey Hall. I have 2 students that work for me. They got thumbs up.
Oh, good. That was Janet and Cassie. So Janet was like, before spring break, she's like, we really ought to at least, because what they did over spring break was put up walls around where the construction will go.
Well, whatever you've done so far.
Well, they put up signs of or pictures, which I think Janet's going to share with you, of what it will look like coming soon. So thank you to Janet and Cassie.
Clay Sutterby and Kate Goodrich.
Yeah. Janet said it was interesting this morning to see students walk in and be like, they walk in and see a wall like that. But yeah, there's nice photos that have coming soon sort of thing. So but Janet thought of that. So we appreciate that comment. I'm glad.
Just that. Comment that I don't know if we've had as many so many projects going at the same time in a period of time that we're doing these things. I think it's great for the college to have this going on. People would appreciate it.
Well, I can tell you the reason that we can do it is we have such great people that work for us. And I can tell you that maintenance does an amazing job. They had to move everybody before spring break, as well as put down the floor for the rodeo and do everything else we were asking. IT had to get that set up. The problem, the reason we've got so many projects going really is because there's timelines on this money. And so, and we're trying to make that as a sustainable project as possible. I mean, we don't want to just spend it. We want to be able to have a capital improvement project that is something that we will have for a long time. And typically we would not have the money to do that with. So thank you, Robert. All right, I'm going to turn it over to Ralph. Remember, questions, comments, it's interactive, but he is next. I'm going to talk a little bit about the strategic planning, but the report that we would like to get from the strategic plan. So like I said, once we go through all this in June, hopefully this will help us refine that strategic plan, be able to develop it more, and also see how we can fulfill our mission and our vision and our core values. So.
Thank you, Alicia. Back in 2017, 2018, Alicia pulled together a large group, and I think some of you were involved, where we actually developed this strategic plan for the college. It's a 5-year plan. It's been updated, I think, a little bit since then, but there was no real way to evaluate that we were actually doing what the plan said, or was the plan too broad, too narrow, whatever. So, thank you. So Alicia charged me with developing a way to evaluate each of the tactics in the plan. The plan has 5 goals. You have a handout in front of you if you want to look at it.
Yeah, that's right.
And it's up there. The plan has 5 goals, and then each goal has strategies, and then each strategy has 2 or 3 tactics as to what we will do to meet that goal and that strategy. So back in the spring, I sat down with the executive committee and we spent a day going through the plan, tactic by tactic, and trying to decide what do we have in place today that we could use to measure whether we're meeting this tactic or not. So what you have here is the document that has each goal, strategy, and tactic, and then underneath, if you look at the very first one, goal 1, strategy 1, tactic 1, the strategies to expand and optimize community outreach. The tactic was to communicate effectively the impact on the community. So the group as a whole decided, for example, that we should look at the website and social media and how many updates there are to that on an annual basis and how many hits there are on that website. The idea is after this year, in July or August, we'll have a year's worth of data that we can then next year say we did better, we did worse, we stayed the same. So it's going to take 2 or 3 years before we really have any meaningful data, but at least we've started now. We met with the whole staff, faculty, and in August went through this and gave them their charges. The last page of this document lists each goal, strategy, and tactic, and who in the administrative team is responsible for gathering the data. Each piece of data has a deadline, most of which is not until July because it's a year's worth of information. So as you go through this, you'll see many of the areas have zeros in them. That's because there's no data yet. If you look at on the first page, goal 1, strategy 1, tactic 2, there's a little bit of information there. This goal measures what each faculty member, a staff member, and student does to volunteer within the community. So obviously, there's 300 people out there that have to report to me what they do during the year in the community as a volunteer. Are they a Sunday school teacher? Are they a Boy Scout leader? And so on. So it's quite an effort to get everyone to do that. So Cassie and Adam are working to get that information, and as it comes in, we'll put that in there, and that number should grow significantly. This is just 3 people, I believe, that are in here right now that submitted information to me for the first semester. So you can see that there is quite a bit of faculty volunteer activity already, and as that grows, that number will get larger and larger.
And just a clarification there, Ralph, on the student volunteer hours, in addition to what the athletics do, our college orientation class is becoming a first-year experience class. So beginning in the fall, each student taking the class will be required to complete 8 hours of community service.
Great.
So it should help the students.
So those numbers will start jumping up as those reports come in. I don't know if you want to go through this whole thing or not. Obviously, you probably don't, but look through this, look at the strategies and the tactics and how we're going to measure those. If you think they're inappropriate, let me know, or let Adam know, and we'll go in there and try to adjust those. We've adjusted them a little bit already, but I'm sure after a first year, we'll be adjusting a little more. In some cases, like this number 2 here, it's going to be a very broad database with a lot of information. But there are some in here that basically deal with how many light bulbs did you change this year from to LED. So some of them are very, very specific, and it's one person's job to get it done. And in some cases, it's the whole community providing the information. So as you go through there, you'll see that some of our tactics were very, very narrow, some were very, very wide, and a lot are in between. I don't know what else I can tell you without going through each one. Just look through there, see what you think. If you see something that seems strange to you, just let me know, and I'll either tell you why we did it or tell you who said that's what we should do. We had 3 or 4 committees back in 2017 who actually wrote these tactics. And so in a couple of cases, we've had to go back to that committee and say, what did you really mean here? And then the person who, I think IT was one, there was a tactic in here to develop an IT disposal plan. And Jason says, what exactly does that mean? And I said, well, I don't know, but let's hook you up. So Jacob and his was in charge of the committee, wrote that, and he sat down with Jason and Julie and figured out what that meant. And so now he's working on that.
And how do you measure it?
Yeah, and how do you measure? Well, the measurement is he wrote the plan and you all approved it. But that may be this year, that may be next year. So some things in here may not even be met during this year because it's a long range plan. That was a question.
Yeah, question on the tactic 3, it says publicize FSCC's economic impact on the community. Does that mean? Okay, what does that mean?
Okay, actually, Adam and I have been doing a little research in that, and there are companies out there that will do a very statistical determination of the impact of the college on the community. It goes as far as looking at how many students graduated, what was their major, how much more money did they make by obtaining that major and going to work than they would have if they'd just been a community member. That was about $30,000 to have that done. So I think what we're going to do there, Julie and I have been talking, is look at what she basically does for the annual report and look at how much money the college spends in the community and such as that. It's not going to be a true economic impact statement, but it will be an idea of what the college spends in the community and how the community is involved in doing projects around the college and so on.
Right now, Bergen County Economic Development is doing an economic study.
Okay.
So it may be part of this.
Yeah.
Maybe answer some of these
Touch
questions.
base with them. It's a good idea. Thank you.
We had the opportunity 2 years ago through KACCT to have an economic impact study done, but it was, at that time, it was $40,000 for each school. And we just didn't have that budgeted. It is really interesting information because they really drill down and, so you can get really aggregate information.
Yeah.
But it's costly to get it done. And I would point out another reason that we need a new ERP, because for us to dig out that information is very difficult.
The old formulas that they use are available, but
Yeah.
finding the data that they use to do the calculations in our system is pretty tough. And also it's much easier for a larger community college or a 4-year institution to do it than us with the few students that we have completing each year. Many don't stick around the community anyway, which is another
But we do
negative.
some very broad economic impact things. What we don't do is, like he said, this was their major, so how did that improve that particular family? And how does that have an effect on that community? You know, they have all these formulas that they can use to give you that information. That might be something that after we go through this, that might be something that you all as a board say, hey, you know, maybe it's worth the $30,000 to have that done. And, you know, it probably wouldn't, we probably wouldn't want it every year, but, you know, maybe that is something that we could look at every 5 years.
Yeah.
I mean, we would, you know, we would certainly entertain that. And if you guys have to think about it, think that that would be a valuable thing to do.
All right, again, if you have any questions, drop me an email or give me a call and I'll be glad to discuss with you what your concern or question is and see if we can come up with an answer.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Also remember that this is a dynamic thing. I mean, just because this is what we've developed, and it has changed considerably actually since 2017. But we haven't really gotten good data. I mean, we have it, but if you have it, what good does it do? We've got to get some really good measurements. The measurements are in there and we have looked at them previously and said, okay, we need to change this. But we would like for a report on the strategic plan to go into our institutional. My thought has always been that it goes into that plan, or that basically that overview that we do at the college each fall, right before Christmas. And we would stick this in here so people know that we are trying to meet our strategies to fulfill our mission. So that's the plan. But know that as you go through here, and as we all go through here, that this is a dynamic thing. It's not static. And sometimes we will have picked a tactic or a measurement that's not doable, or we may have even picked a goal that, you know, that doesn't work. But the way we came up with the goals is from the mission originally. So the goals haven't really changed that much. Some of the strategies and the tactics have changed. Thank you so much, Ralph. He's worked hard on it. I appreciate it. Now he just needs to get people to cooperate and send him information.
Yes.
Thank you. Chris Mingarelli are you next?
Yeah.
Okay, Chris is next. Chris is the director, of course, of our Crawford Tech Ed Center in Pittsburgh, and does a wonderful job. Previous to this life, he was a math teacher at some other life. And he also can, he's a jack of all trades, as he would like to tell you. That's what I tell him. He can do, he's very, very good at what he does, so.
Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate the opportunity. Alicia came to me and the three of us, Alicia and Adam and I, have been working on bringing back the truck driving school, or commercial driver's license, CDL. There's a problem that I think we have a great opportunity to be a solution for. The problem would be that the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration came up with new guidelines, or federal government implemented new guidelines. So effective February 7th, anyone that wanted to get a CDL Class A or Class B has to go through entry-level driver training. So lots of acronyms in this thing. So we'll have the ELDT and your CDL with your CLP, which is your commercial learner permit. I'll try to keep you up to speed, but the FMCSA mandates that you have to go through entry-level driver training. There's two parts to that entry-level driver training. There's a theory piece, so the textbook part of it, and then behind the wheel, or the BTW, if you will. So the challenge has been, like our local school transportation directors have tried to figure out how are we going to get this extra set of training put in. And then one of CTEC's board members, Dan Boley, so we have a board for our nonprofit, the Career Tech Ed Center, and he works for Waste Management, or GFI. And I think he told Alicia he's got 25 people he could line up and ready to go through this training. So the demand, anyone I talk to, the demand for the CDL Class A is very high right now. And so It's a great opportunity for us to pull this back off the shelf and get it lined up. We've done the research into the ELDT, and we can do that. The theory portion of that, we can do similar to what we do with our OSHA 10. So our students down at CTEC here at the welding, OSHA 10 is one of the required classes, and it's an online course where we purchase the vouchers, we give them a voucher, they log into CareerSafe, they go through the class, the coursework, pass the test, and earn their OSHA 10. So the ELDT theory would be very similar to that. ELDT Direct, we contacted them. They have the online curriculum set up, a discounted rate for us as a school. So we could set that up and do the ELDT theory that way. The behind the wheel portion, and I look at the ELDT as kind of redundant on one hand, but at the same time for the federal government, it standardizes things. So different states may have little variations in what they expect for their commercial driver's license trainees. And so this is the standard for the federal. This is the base of what they have to do. So if you go through the ELDT theory, it's going to match up pretty close with what you would have to study in the Kansas Commercial Driver's License Handbook. And those two would go together to help you pass the driver's test to get your commercial learner's permit. Then when you start looking at the ELDT behind the wheel, that's going to match up with what you're going to need to know when you drive to Chinook or Gardner Edgerton and do your hands-on pre-trip inspection and drive with the instructor. So that goes into a registry with the FMCSA, and they have that registry. So if I go up to take my driver's test on a tractor trailer, I call up to schedule my appointment. They're going to pull up that database and make sure that I've taken both of those ELDT portions before they'll even schedule me. So the challenge for our businesses is that's an added layer, and they're not sure how to get there from here. We as Fort Scott Community College have looked at it, and we can stack those two things together and roll people through, and then those businesses don't have to worry about any of that. So I think it's a great opportunity. Adam?
And Chris does the comparison between the ELDT and the behind the wheel to our OSHA 10. Our OSHA 10, they do the career safe part, and then they have the safety orientation part for the class where they're in the shop doing what needs to be done. And that's similar to the behind the wheel training for this. What burned us before was the ability for truck driving companies to hire somebody, buddy drive them, and get them their CDL without any required theory type of training. That's one of the reasons we were losing so much on the program. Now the federal government says you have a theory required training embedded in there. And so it's kind of renewed the need for the CDL training to come from us as an institution.
As of the 1st of February, you have to have theory training before they will allow you to set all across the United States for CDL, which previous that you didn't have to. Another huge difference between this and our previous program is this will be a not for credit hour. So we will not be getting state funding for it. We could never, because of the changes, and it wasn't anybody's fault, it was just evolutionary. You know, like he said, the trucking companies have picked up training for themselves. And our trucking program did not qualify for federal financial aid. So they had to pay out of pocket. So, and it won't now either, but we will do it as a non-credit hour training. So it's a B&I training, which we need to do more of, and we're trying to figure this out. Yeah, it's part of our strategic plan, because we've got to be able to be flexible to meet business needs. When you add a credit hour to it, it extends the program so long that we can't compete. Because for one credit hour, I mean, you cannot take it for credit hour. And we've been working really tightly with Kansas Board of Regents. Adam went on last Wednesday. I had, of course, Dick Hedges' funeral was Wednesday, and he went and met with KBOR and the Department of Commerce, who we're working with. We thought we'd had more progress with the Department of Commerce and workforce aid on this than we're actually getting, but we're hoping we get some movement on that side. But anyway, that's one of the big differences between the program now, and I think he'll kind of give you a little quick preview of how it would work in terms of getting through it.
Yeah, and I think, you know, you can look at the strategic plan. We talk about partnerships. The city of Girard and the city of Pittsburgh are both very interested in partnering with us in some way. And I think the other thing that would be a huge benefit is the ability to kind of almost travel. The truck and trailer could be in a different location, working on behind the wheel for a cohort of students in Fort Scott, in Pleasanton, as we look at some of those different areas that we serve. And the other partnership, the board member for CTEC that I was referring to has already agreed to come, and they came and took a look at the tractor trailer, said it's really a good machine, needs some work, and they're willing to do the work for us in exchange for us helping them out when it comes time to start some drivers. So there's a lot of momentum right now in that regard. As far as program length, looking at that, we would say 4 to 8 weeks. It's a challenge. I have a student down in Pittsburgh or from Girard that has driven a tractor trailer on the farm for years and years. So his behind the wheel may not take as long as somebody who walks off the street and doesn't have any mechanical background. So we allowed for that with a 4 to 8 week training.
And that's the advantage of going on the non-credit side. If it was credit, it would be standardized. Everybody would be 8 weeks. With this, if you come in and you have a lot of that background, all of us that come off the farm and driven that type of thing, if you have that background, you're going to work through it quite a bit quicker.
And remember, this isn't everyday classes. It means 4 to 8 weeks. So they'll be able to get online, do the theory. They can do that at one of our computers or on their own. So after work, whatever. So people that are in school or working, it doesn't affect that at all. And then on Saturdays is when we'll do, or some evenings is when we'll do behind the wheel. So it's not like, a 6-hour day or anything like that. But you could actually get done easily in 4 weeks if you're motivated to get the work done. Because you can sit down and do the ELDT part in 4 or 5 hours if you get motivated to do it.
Right.
And you know a little bit about it.
Yeah, and so that the flexibility of all of that is really beneficial. I mean, you can get in and get the online stuff taken care of. As far as cost, we've talked about that $3,000 seems to be, I would say it's going to be on the low end of what other schools will actually charge. Anywhere from $2,500 up to $5,000 or more. And so trying to find that balance that fits our socioeconomic needs in this area, but also you don't want to be so cheap that people are like, I don't know about that program. It's a little too cheap, but finding that balance, and we have an instructor who works for the city of Pittsburgh who'd be willing to work part-time and help with behind the wheel and some of that in-class training that they're going to get. When you look at, and that was one of the things Alicia kind of started reference, if you just look at the course outline, we went back and forth on what would be required on day one. We think it would be prohibitive if you required them to get their commercial learner's permit before they ever started. It's a 200-page manual, and you read certain sections and have to be able to pass the test. So we thought, we would gear it for somebody.
County, which they want you to have it when you walk in.
Right. I think if you want to gear it for the person who doesn't have much background but has a clean driving record and can pass a drug test, they come in and on day one, we'll start helping them through the whole process. We have a partnership with Community Health Center to do the DOT physicals as well as the drug testing. And then we could start helping you study for that test. So within the first 2 weeks, you would hopefully be to a point where you could pass that commercial learner's permit test, and then we can get to the behind the wheel. So I think it's just really important to have that help for people, especially if they don't have that background. But once we get through that second week and having your commercial learner's permit, then it really just switches to that ELDT behind the wheel, which would also be all the hands-on pre-trip inspection, post-trip inspection that you would need in order to pass when you schedule that. To really, Alicia told me we ran into a roadblock, but one of the things that we would really are going to pursue, I would like to continue to really push for, is to become a third-party testing site. So if you go to school, if you go through this B&I training with Fort Scott Community College, when you complete it, you can take the test through Fort Scott Community College. Because the bottleneck right now is 6 weeks, you're 6 weeks out to go to Gardner Edgerton. So you could complete the course and you're still 6 weeks before you can go test. And that's a real challenge for the businesses, because as you increase the number of people going through, that's going to be the bottleneck. And so I spoke with someone with the Department of Motor Vehicles, and we're working on how to become a third-party testing site. So, and we were at one point, but.
And one of the things just to note with this right now, we're only looking at Kansas residents.
Right.
Not crossing the Missouri state line at this point. So.
Right.
There are some differences in the requirements.
And we kind of were looking at staying with businesses initially.
To start with.
So to start with business partnerships, so if Waste Management, GFI wants to send 6 students, we can work with them, and then they can turn around and use that to keep those employees. I mean, if I'm going to pay, as a business, I want to pay $3,000 for you to go to school, then you need to sign a contract that says if you leave before 120 days, then you owe me X amount or whatever. We'll leave that to businesses to decide on that side. But we could do some donations in kind, like with them fixing the tractor trailer and getting it roadworthy. So.
I have also touched base with the new city manager in Fort Scott. They're interested too, because they also, of course, have a need, the county of Bourbon County, and of course, the city of Fort Scott. One of the other hurdles that we thought that we had already gotten over was that working with the Department of Commerce, they have something called workforce aid. And they had a new person in charge of their workforce aid, and her and I had met and agreed that they would pay $1,500 per person, meaning the Department of Commerce, the state of Kansas, and that we would then get $1,500 from the business. So not for individuals, but for businesses. And that's when I talked with Mr. Boley about, if you can do some in-kind things, we would count that towards your $1,500 per person. So they're going to fix up the truck, or if we were doing a school district, if you allow us to use your school bus, we can use the hours that we use it as an in-kind donation. Well, we have all of this worked out, and Scott Smathers is the vice president for workforce development at Kansas Board of Regents. And then the lady that we were working with at the Department of Commerce, and we were going to be the pilot for the state of Kansas, she up and gets a different job. So now we were back to a gentleman that started the workforce aid development, or that started that program, and his idea about what workforce aid is, and Scott and I's, and certainly Adam's, who appreciated him going up for meeting, is much different. So I gave Adam all these rules about these are the things that I have to have. And I had talked with this gentleman on the phone, and he had promised me some things on the phone that he's since sort of reneged on. And so now we're going to have to sort of tiptoe around some of that. But to me, we can still do the ELDT training, and it's going, I think it's badly needed. Without the workforce aid, without the state of Kansas saying, if we really want to solve the skills gap issue that we have with CDL, the state of Kansas is going to have to throw some money in on this. And if they're not willing to work with both private and public business, so cities, counties, and school districts, again, it's not going to solve the skills gap that we have on that side of it. And so that's the approach that I'm taking, and certainly that Dr. Smathers is taking as well, as we approach the Department of Commerce. And so now Blake Flanders is going to also advocate for us to get this out, because we feel like this is the vision that we have, and if we talk the Board of Regents into it, we can be a model for this. You know, we have a very historic knowledge of how CDL training should work. It can't work exactly like it used to, but we still have that history that we can use to make this work. And I think people still think about Fort Scott when they think about trying to, you know, get a CDL license, and we want to take advantage of the fact that we have that history. So we're going to make it work. It's not as smooth as I had hoped, but whatever it is, I get a little optimistic sometimes. So
I have a question.
Yep.
So is something gonna happen down the road where they're gonna say, okay, this is not gonna work, or something like this, and because we've got a big trucking company somewhere, and they said, well, we're gonna do it ourselves, we're gonna train our drivers, we're gonna do this, and we're gonna get stuck with nothing.
I think that's a great question. Hang on, I'll let you answer it. That's an excellent question, because what you're asking about is how sustainable is this?
Well, because this is what happened to us.
Right, and can you put this on the shelf?
You don't want
The deal with this is we wouldn't have as much investment. We have a tractor and a trailer. But that's where the in-kind piece really works out nice. It's like, hey, if I can use your tractor and your trailer as a business, or I can use your school bus or your dump truck or whatever, and use that as an in-kind, then I don't have to have that capital investment that I would normally have to have. And we have somebody, fortunately, that is, because to be able to teach the ELDT, you already had to have some training, and we have an individual that already has that training that wants to go to work for us. And so that piece of it would be good. The other thing that we have is Chris Mingarelli, he's going to go through it, and if we can get that through, and there's a little bit of a bottleneck there too on getting the third-party testing because of some of the history that Fort Scott has with the Department of Revenue who runs that. If we can get that through, then Chris will serve as the third-party tester, because the individual that trains cannot do the testing. So I don't have to hire a whole new individual to do the testing. That would just be a piece of what Chris is doing. But if I had to hire the trainer, the third-party tester, and all those things, then it becomes very cost prohibitive. So we're trying to work it with the resources that we already have. Do I think at some point it won't? I think everything at some point evolves to the point where you have to change it, fix it, or put it on a shelf for a while. It's one thing that I've always advocated with the Board of Regents, as Adam knows. We need programs that you can put on a shelf and take off when you need them. But it's not always that easy. It's like, okay, I did all the training I need right now. Can I put this on a shelf and not make, what they do is they make us rewrite the whole program, do the whole thing over. So we don't have that flexibility. We're not as nimble as we need to be with business and industry training.
So the good thing about this is, one of the good things is that you're not tied in with the credit hours.
Correct. Right.
That kind of thing.
So yes, that would be one thing that would make it. The other, the person we've identified that could teach would teach part-time stipend on just doing that. So let's say 3 months from now, we're going, yeah, this isn't shaking out the way we thought it was going to at all. We're not out of full instructor contract and all of that. It would be which is something that
The minimal investment in personnel from that perspective, and already having the equipment that we need and the resources we need, and being able to run it as a non-credit really help us reduce the cost if a change were made. Now, the change that made at this point was to go in the direction of requiring more work from the institution rather than less over time.
But it is a soft start.
Yeah.
It's just, yeah, I agree.
Okay, well, what's to keep Missouri from doing the same kind of thing, only making it easier for these drivers to do it, and then they get people to go to Missouri?
Nothing.
Okay,
Yeah, they can do it. They're just bound by the national guidelines now rather than the 3-day residency. Like
That's-
that's
ELDT's national, so it makes it.
okay, okay,
It makes it more equitable where we now have
because
everybody has to have that.
that was the part of it that just like drove the nail in the coffin for us to an extent where you could move them or go to Missouri from anywhere, and in 3 days you've got.
You have Missouri residency, it takes 6 months in Kansas.
Right.
You can set for the Missouri license, and here, we couldn't bring people over from Missouri because they'd have to wait 6 months to take our Kansas licensure exams.
And now the residency requirement is null because of its non-credit. And then.
Okay.
And they're no longer able to go to Joplin and get on with a group and do the buddy driving. They need some.
But it sounds like if that were to happen, the only thing we would really be out is whatever investment we have in part-time faculty that isn't a continuing contract kind of issue.
Correct.
Correct.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
The
I'd like
whole,
for it to grow.
Sure, absolutely.
right, and the whole ELDT thing it's new, so we don't know necessarily what
That's a
other
good question.
companies or businesses may come up with to work around it.
Yeah.
But I do know, I did talk to a lady from the Kansas Federal Motor Carriers Administration, and it's not a Kansas government agency, it's an independent group, and she talked a lot about the high demand of more mom and pop in Kansas carriers, so local carriers that are really desperate for it. So, I think there is going to be some demand there that we wouldn't put us in competition with some of the national, but yeah, it's interesting for sure.
Sounds good.
Good question. Anything else? Thank you.
Anytime you guys want to go get some food or whatever, but I believe Jordan's next. Is that right? No. The ones that are the 8-week credit hour ones are really defunct right now. There's still some listed on the book. Johnson County is re-upping theirs.
Johnson County, Cloud County, Dodge City, Seward County, and CK Tech, Washburn Tech.
Dodge City is keeping theirs the same way.
And Seward is as well. There.
And I don't know how theirs.
George?
So I came to talk a little bit about the potential to get a new building for their nursing program.
And I should introduce Jordan. This is Jordan Howard, and he's the director of nursing and does an amazing job with our nursing program.
So the nursing program moved into the Burke Street campus in 2005 and have been there since that time. The issues with the building kind of abundant and really all lead back to when it was built in 1956. So it was built to never fall apart, which makes a problem in itself. So especially with the heating, air conditioning, and then the plumbing. I know the last time we had a problem with the plumbing, I think they had to drill through 4 or 5 inches of cement to actually get to the pipe. So a big problem with the HVAC system as well. There's a letter of intent in the packet I gave you all. I think you had access to that beforehand. It should be the last 2 pages there. So we've talked with Community Health of Southeast Kansas about potentially purchasing the old Mercy Medical Clinic on Horton Street, right across the road from Medic Lodge. So with that, the building is quite a bit newer. It was built in 1984, last remodeled in 94. So size-wise, as you see on that first page there, really not going to change much as far as square footage for what we use now for what we would be getting. The benefits are plentiful. So with this agreement, CHC would also give us 2 rooms in their Price Chopper building, which you can see on the blueprint there. I think it's the page right before the letter of intent. So if you're looking at that, it's going to be your top right corner. It's kind of a brownish area. So we'll have 2 classrooms there. We'll have our own private entrance. So students, faculty wouldn't have to walk through the entire facility. They would just be able to go there. The classrooms would house 24 students apiece. And then we would also have office space available to us as well. So part of the problem we've had in nursing is faculty. So healthcare costs, prices for nurses continue to increase. So we've had a problem getting faculty members that want to teach. So we've been in talks with CHC about partnering to kind of have a shared faculty member to where they could teach for us, kind of contract. So teach for us, our students could go to their facility and get lecture from these individuals. And then when they weren't teaching for us, they would work full-time with CHC. So then that way, it'd be more favorable for them, as they would be able to make more than just a normal faculty member. And then clinical. So right now we do clinicals with all sorts of facilities, hospitals and agencies around. But we have to have a faculty member in-house or under the same roof. So with this, if we were in the building, our students could do clinical there as well, which would cut down on the number of clinical faculty that we would have to have as well. So, I put in there the cost of utilities for what we pay now, and that's again going to be on the front page. So the information that we have available to us is quite a bit more than what CHC has on the Horton building. So right now, for an 8-year average, we spend about $2,221 on utilities. The repairs over the last 6 years has been about $7,600, and every year it has got quite a bit more. So you can see the comparison there. So roughly be about a cost savings of $12,000 every year just on repairs and utilities. When I talked to the maintenance guy at CHC, he said if most of the repairs for them have been usual repairs, so filters, lighting, light bulbs, stuff like that, just the normal wear and tear stuff. Part of the agreement too would be that they would start a scholarship for the students. So they're talking doing a $2,500 a year scholarship for nursing students as well.
Where do you have to do some of your clinicals now?
Now, since Mercy closed, we go all over. We were all over before, but a lot of our students stayed here in town. So now we go from Paola all the way to Joplin. We go Nevada all the way over to Iola. So we have clinical agreements, partnerships with all facilities around the area.
It's a balancing act on clinicals, because there's some days that certain institutions are allowed,
Yeah,
like Penn
yeah.
State's allowed to do clinicals. And
Right, yeah, so like at Via Christi in Pittsburgh, or Ascension Via Christi, we use their hospital Mondays and Fridays. So,
Well, the reason I asked that, we did a procedure in Iowa. We walked in, there's 2 Fort Scott Community College students there.
yeah, and we go there on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Yeah, so it really depends on the semester.
Thursday.
Yeah, yeah. So we try and go all over.
It causes Jordan to have 10 plates spinning all the same
Yeah,
time.
yeah, there's always students somewhere. So. Questions?
How many students are in the program?
Right now we have about 70
7.
students, yeah.
Now, there's some different times during the summer, first year, second.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. So it's 4 semesters once you're in the actual nursing program. So 70 total. COVID kind of dropped that a little bit, but that was nationwide. So I think all nursing programs are down about 25%.
Yeah, now, I visited one of your instructors yesterday after church service. He goes to our church, and you have quite a struggle with HVAC,
Yeah,
heating. A lot of times it's down, period, and
yeah. So the big problem with it is, like I said, it's the building. So I think 3 years ago, I think it was about $1 million to get it upgraded. But it's a one pipe system, so we either have heat or we have air conditioning. We have to have the company come out and change it. And we live in Kansas, where sometimes you have to flip it back and forth several times a day.
We also have to do the 3rd floor because we don't have any way to
Cut it off, yeah.
So we can't just heat and cool certain parts of the building. And the 3rd floor, of course, is not used at all.
No.
Well, there's a couple mannequins up there that will scare the bejeebers out of you.
Depending on who you talk to, maybe.
It's haunted up there.
Yeah.
It is lots. Oh,
No. I won't go up there.
Don't talk to Jason about this.
so what's the plan? So what's the plans for Birch Street if we proceed with Horton Street?
I'm not sure on that. I think that'd probably be up to.
Well, that's an excellent question. At Birch Street, basically, right now, the VA is there and we would maintain. Oh, Birch Street, I'm sorry. To be honest with you, the plan would be up to you guys, but my thought would be the only thing we have down there besides nursing is our Hep program, which is the high school equivalency program for the migrants, which Janet can visit with you about. They will be moving up here because they too have, you know, they're either so hot or so cold down there that it doesn't work out well for them. My suggestion would be that we would try to sell it. We did just recently, and I hope you guys got that at the, I know, I think you're part of the St. Mary's Catholic Church. We did give the portion that is just south of the building to St. Mary's because that's something that they had needed. And so we have an easement with them where they can, you know, park and stuff and go take care of that grotto that was there. And so it needs we're happy. I can tell you maintenance is very happy. But we feel like it was the appropriate thing to do. And I know the board, we've been working on that for a while. We signed that quick claim deed on that. And I think we mailed it finally to Justin's office. So I would guess that we would try to sell it. We even talked, I tried to talk CHC into saying, let's do a trade. You know, if you need a place to office some folks. But they said now there are people that are not that don't touch patients, you know, are not patient, they work from home. Because that's what I said, hey, we'll make a nice trade with you. You can use that for office space, but it's not appropriate according to our creditors for a nursing program. So how about we trade it out?
I think some years ago, someone wanted to buy some of the property.
Yes.
Jason Marbury wanted to buy the front.
The north.
Yeah.
Street access, I'd say, on the north. But I asked him again, so a couple of years ago or so, and he said he wasn't interested.
Yeah, he's got some lots now he hasn't built on, so.
Okay.
It's really, the amazing thing is, I always say, if you go inside of it, it's well built. I always thought it's beautiful. I mean, you know, in a lot of ways. It's just like down there, we have so much trouble with like the internet and stuff. The walls are like that thick of chicken wire and all this other stuff. So you can't get through. Jason's like, yeah, it's a huge issue down there. So it's not appropriate. We have talked, you'll recall, some of you about could we turn it into housing? And so we've looked at several different things that maybe we could do with it. But anytime we look at it, it's just so cost prohibitive. Like he said, we got a quote 3 years ago and it was $1 million to redo the HVAC in the building. $1 million. We had to have a motor built specifically for that system down there just so we could get it back up and going. And so they didn't have any air conditioning down there. That's what we're very common with.
Remember the windows? A couple of weeks ago, they didn't have the windows leak. I mean, it was gonna a huge amount of money to replace the windows.
Well, yeah, and the base to the window has, but you can't disturb it because it's an asbestos product. So you can't tear it out. So but you can cover it. I mean, it's not an issue for health that you can't tear it out because once you tear it out, then that becomes the issue. So you have to just find a way to cover it. Bang on me for saying that.
Anything else?
Thank
Sounds
you.
great.
Thank you, guys.
Great
Do we want to just take a little break?
Sure.
Does that sound okay?
Yeah. Do the rest of our. Yep, so give me a food break back here.
Okay.
Good. Granddaddy all day.
that I've put on there so that we don't forget it. Don't have a cost for it, but it is marked as something that we need to think about. The nursing building, if we did get the contract, enter into that agreement with CHC, there would be some renovation there that we need to budget for. So you can kind of see where we are in there, what we've done in the past, what it's cost us. Any questions on that, or if you want to see prior years, I can email that to Alicia and have her send it out to you. It just gets really, really tiny. Yeah, it does. So any comments, anything that you would like to see further?
I see here, where was that? Lost it. No. Softball field bathrooms. I think that's something that I don't know, needs to be.
We are working on the softball and baseball bathrooms.
Yeah.
That's the cost, I think, that's on here is through February. It's gonna be higher than what that is, but we've done extensive work, maintenance has on the baseball bathrooms in particular, because those were really.
Is that in here somewhere? Because on the first page, it says softball field bathrooms, and there's nothing here.
I think it's under,
Baseball.
Yeah.
yeah, it's repair steps and landings, softball, and then bathrooms for baseball.
8,200.
We actually did with the city, worked on softball restrooms
A couple, 3 years ago. Yeah.
So the city provided some stuff, we
Oh,
provided work.
Thank you. Okay.
Yeah. Softball bathrooms are in pretty good shape because we did work on them with the city. We put in a handicap bathroom, did some rearranging of that. Painted them, put some heat in there, I believe, if I remember right.
Okay.
Baseball was the one that was in bad shape, and then, like it says there, the steps up, go up on the softball landing, those were pretty weak. They were beginning to become a safety hazard, so that's something that Jared looked at.
Do we still have those porta potties after the baseball field?
Yeah,
Or-
they're out there right now, but the need for them essentially is for people who are using the turf field. Like this weekend, the CrossFit people were out, the small group had the Fort games, and those got used quite a bit. But the goal would be to get those porta potties out of there because there's no need to have them there.
Right. Right.
It's kind of, Julie could probably speak to this better, but it's kind of interesting, you know, the city, we have a contract with the city. The city uses the softball field June, July, August. Is that right?
I think that's right.
They there's a date like May 15th until August 1st.
Something like that. And so we partner with them on some of that stuff, but they use those softball fields during the summer months.
So these bathrooms winterized during the winter?
Yeah, they lock them up, turn them off the water.
Okay.
Yes.
The baseball at this point, they are going to be winterized. They have the ability to have heat in it.
We're gonna put a
Okay.
P-TEC unit in there and try to keep it where we don't have to shut it down because it needs to be used a lot of times when there's.
And that's part of where we get in with the porta potties out there is because it's still too cold to turn on the water. And so we have to rent a porta potty.
Okay.
So. Any other comments on the capital improvements? This will be something that you will see when we get more in depth with budget as what is our projects? What are we recommending as administration as projects for next year?
The Azure access system was what we used out at Mercy. $74,000
No, that's what we put in Greyhound.
right now.
I mean, not Greyhound, Blue. Yeah.
And that's part of the safety and security credit fee that students pay every year. It
Okay.
builds into an account that we use on safety and security. We've upgraded a lot of the camera systems with that, and that purchase was to make Blue Hall keyless entry.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you. Julie.
Let's
Yeah. she-
take a look at HERB monies, or update on HERB monies. This is through February, monies we've received and spent. The second slide there is kind of just a summary for you. Some of the, I noticed, and this is different in what we had left of institutional money. That's basically because we have pulled down that money for lost revenue and paying on student balances. So we've pulled some of that down that she had categorized on her report. So gives you a summary of all the monies we've received. So as the auditor told you,
Excuse me.
this thing right here, sorry. Yeah, the second slide there. So we've received $8 million in grant funding related to COVID. That includes the Sparks, the HERF money for students and institutional. Out of that, so far, we've spent $5,800,000, almost 5.9. So we do have the $2 million remaining to spend and draw from the federal government. So I just wanted to give you a summary up front of what we have received, spent, and have left. And then the next several slides are taking each different section of that summary, identifying again what we spent, what we have remaining, and then what we spent it on, how we spent it. So Jason has up there, like, there's institutional. We received $4.1 million. We spent 2.6. We have remaining to draw requests from the federal government, 1.4 million. And then if you go to the next slide, Jason. Oh, that's really little.
Yeah, from him too.
You can read that from your paper. But
Not too big on our paper either.
yeah, I know. But you know, there's so many things we've been able to do. You know, it talks about we refreshed the theater, which Alicia talked about. We've done some audio equipment, lots of audio equipment and microphones and cameras and that type of thing for remote learning. Hover cams, that's again for remote learning. We purchased, between that and Sparks, we were able to purchase our 35 and 25 passenger shuttle buses. Privacy screens for allied health to help them as they're practicing their lab work. Just lots and lots of different things. Of course, masks, Clorox wipes, thermometers, a bottle-filled water stations, fountains, and then down to furnishings. You know,
And the reason the furnishing, these are, you know, wipeable, sanitizable,
Yeah.
or the other isn't. So, you know, it's all qualified under those
right.
things.
You know, we purchased, as Alicia said, the Garrison Apartments, student balances. We were able to pay off some of the COVID semester balances that students had. Hazard pay for employees, a new phone system that very much needed, and especially when we had workers that were remote working. It was a challenge to try to get calls and transfer calls. So as Alicia said, it has been very advantageous for us because we've been able to do some of those things that we would have had a real challenge trying to do on our own funding. You know, just updating the theater and some of our furnishings, and the phone system has been a big plus for us, the technology that we've been able to implement. And get that.
And then it just goes on, the list goes on and on and on. First, I thought about trying to detail everything that we spent it on, even worse than that sentence. And I thought, oh no, this is gonna take way too much. So we have a strengthening institutions grant, that was nice. It updated our Zoom room for nursing. Salaries, online faculty, where we had to pay increased pay for online faculty. Just lots of expenditures there that qualified, and we were able to take care of that. So if you want to kind of look through that, if you have questions, you may not have questions tonight, but if you have questions, you want to send them back. We've been able to buy, I think it was 30 laptops that we bought for student use, where we could check out to students because of being quarantined or being sent home or at home.
Is it, am I reading this right? You have to use it by June 30th of 2023? Is that?
Yes, that's our extension at this point, which we were thrilled with that. It was there in August of 22, and that was going to be a real challenge. We just got that week before, or before we left for spring break, we did that, so they extended everybody, which we were very, I was like, whoo.
Yeah, the question on the shuttle buses, at one time when we had a football program, we needed more capacity to get those students to the games and so forth.
Well, we didn't use the shuttle buses for football as much, it's mostly.
We did when we got these new ones.
Yeah.
But in the past, we had to charter buses from Kansas City or Joplin to be able to do that. With the new buses, we are using every one of them. I mean, right now we've got.
Yeah, that's my question.
Baseball
Are we using
track.
that more than not chartering buses?
Yeah, we
have
very rarely
charter
charter.
buses.
Yeah.
For,
The only time,
2 years at least.
yeah, the only time that potential is there is if track, baseball and softball are all on the road at the same time, because track
okay.
has so many kids.
Yeah.
And when we first got them, Jim, we also used it, even if the team would have fit on one of the smaller ones, like the 25 shuttle, Charles would try to put them on a 35 or the bigger one in order to spread them out some when we were in that social distancing, which is how we got it to qualify.
Yeah. Years ago, we used the bus as this is a community service, and I still hear about it from some people in town, that the college used to use the bus to take community people to like the new theater and other places. But new theater kind of brings to mind. And I keep being asked by some of those people if we're ever going to do that again.
If we get a request once in a while, I have used them since I've been here on, or use the bands for something. If we get somebody requesting and it worked, I'll just be honest, that stuff's scheduled out anymore pretty heavily in terms of our student use because we have so many teams on the road. But if we can work it out, we do.
I mean, as a community service, it gets people on campus.
Yeah.
And
It's just that sometimes, we get real short notice on it and it's like, can we use, it's like, no, dang it, we don't have anything available for you. And then, we have to have an available driver too, which has been a huge issue for us as well, so. CDL drivers, we have a driver for our insurance. We're thinking about making all coaches be CDL drivers.
Program is in through.
Yeah. Because it's a real challenge, it's a huge challenge for us
Yeah.
to get them on the road.
Well, Jim, I remember when they used to do that. I participated in that a couple of times.
It is a good, it's a nice.
We have used it. Before COVID, we used it to transport during the homes for the holidays.
Yeah, we always do the homes
Yeah.
for the holidays and some stuff like that. And I think at one time, maybe they did do it kind of like the trawl, even the trolley kind of thing, maybe, I don't know.
Yeah.
But we did used to have the community kind of outreach like John and Jim were talking about, where the college kind of sponsored a trip.
Yeah.
Up to the
We
city for
actually
those
sponsored
activities.
They had a whole year scheduled.
Right, yeah, there would be several different activities in that.
We are sponsoring, Gordon Parks is headed to
Yes.
Manhattan, which will be really nice, and we're using one of the, we're going up there April 13th. April 13th, it's a Wednesday.
Okay.
John's like, but it is, if we can do it, I think it's a really nice gesture.
Let's say, I haven't paid attention. Do we have a name on those shuttles?
Yes.
Okay. Never, I believe it never.
It was a welcoming though, for a while they did it.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
I have a question for Jason. Do you know, or how can you tell if anybody has zoomed in on this meeting?
I can see that there were 3 people on YouTube earlier, but other than that, I can't tell who.
Oh, well, no, that just if there still are.
But even for the people here, John, you go ahead.
Okay, well, normally our meetings start at 5:30 PM. And if you are on Zoom, we're having a meeting of, what do we call this? A work session, and it's running over the time that we had allotted for it, but we're gonna go ahead and finish it. So the regular board meeting will happen probably after a short break after this work session, in case you're listening.
It's just one person and it's me.
You can hear me from here then. Thanks, Jason. Yeah, okay.
So, any questions on her things? Or you wanna review it and look at it and ask later?
I have no more questions. If somebody else, they can always give you a call. Okay.
Thank you.
Before Tom starts, are any of you still not able to get the agenda on your iPad? Like, we ran a hard copy, we need to make other copies of the hard copy.
I do have mine.
You've got it?
Yep.
Yeah. All right.
I've got it on my personal email. I don't even use the college email anymore.
Right, but do you have an electronic copy in front of you now?
Huh?
Do you have it on, are you able to see it on that
Yeah,
device there? Okay,
Yeah.
so nobody needs a hard copy. Okay, perfect.
All right, we'll go ahead and get started with my updates and whatnot. I'm gonna try to motor through them because I don't think that you guys really haven't seen it. None of it's completely brand new. But the first page, the first slide that we have is our housing options and our capacity within our dorms. And so as you can see there, the total capacity that we have is 352 beds for students on campus. That includes essentially what we're looking at for next year. And so that does not include this previous year at Mercy. And we had an increased number at Garrison as well, or at Sycamore as well. This is what we'll look at as far as the future looking forward. We are going back a little bit on some of the apartments that we have at Sycamore, just because it is more manageable for us to cut it back to what the amount was that we originally had contracted with them. We had over the past couple of years added some apartments, and we will surrender those back to Sycamore. And our total capacity will be 352 beds. As you can see on the right there, and it is small both on yours and on the PowerPoint, I put down our yearly roster projections. Those are pretty solid as far as how many students that we get traditionally in each one of those programs. Some of those are based on how many letters of intent that we get, how big our rosters are allowed. And then some of them are a little higher than that because they have traditionally brought in more students as walk-ons. particularly with track and cross country. In baseball, those are higher than what we typically would get with just their letters of intent. For example, track has 30 men and 30 women that they're able to scholarship. But the last 2 years, we brought in more than 90 kids at the beginning of the fall semester. And so as you can see, the total roster number in the dorms, and we included meats judging, livestock judging, John Deere as well, because they traditionally have some students that stay in the dorms. We're at about 324, which leaves 28 beds for students who are not attached to a particular activity to be able to come in and live within our housing. And that works out pretty well. This last year, we had about 60 kids on the wait list that were not able to stay in our dorms that we essentially had to turn away. It'd be interesting to run a study on what happened to those kids if they decided to go somewhere else because housing was essential for them, or if it was just they had to apply for housing because they're receiving some sort of scholarship from Fscc that would have required them to be able to live in student housing. You guys have any questions on that first slide? Okay. The next one is housing capacity history. What I would ask you to do on this one is to ignore 21, just because with football going away and the fact that we weren't able to get in Garrison right away, it was kind of difficult to be able to forecast what these numbers actually mean. What this does is essentially give you about a 13, 14 year history on how many students that we had in our dorms and where they were housed by semester. And so you can see we back in 2009, which oddly enough is when our enrollment was the highest, we only had 218 students in our dorms. In this last semester we had, or this last fall, we started with 429. And so we've gone up significantly in housing. Now we will pull those back a little bit this next year because our housing at Mercy is no longer available, and some of the Sycamore Grove apartments won't be available as well. So I think that we will be very efficient with the number of 352 beds. I'm confident we'll be able to fill all of those. And another thing that you can see the difference between fall and spring, and our occupancy traditionally goes down about 20, 25, 30% from the fall to the spring. A lot of that was attributed to football being a fall sport. And so a lot of those students who were here during the fall would move on to their next school during the spring. We don't anticipate that we'll see as big of a turnover with the retention on those students, because our larger sports, baseball, track, are spring sports. And so those students who report in the fall, they will of course stay from the spring so they can compete. And so hopefully we'll see that retention numbers on that, on our capacity higher towards, we'll always start the fall at 100% or very close to it. But we'd like to see the spring come up to be, 85, 90% as well, to help us out a little bit on our numbers. Any questions with those? I try to make it as small as possible to alleviate some questions. Okay, and I wanted to just go through a couple foundation updates. I put on there what our total liabilities and net assets are in the foundation and how those are made up. So we're currently sitting a little bit above 8 million in our total liabilities and assets. Only 740,000 of that is unrestricted, meaning that we have the ability to use those funds on what we feel that we need to. That's obviously a number as we look to make capital improvements and be able to improve on some things around campus, that looking forward, we'd like to see some more unrestricted funds. The temporarily restricted and the permanent restricted are a lot of scholarships that are saying that this money needs to go directly to this type of student. So a student from Redfield that has a 2.5 and their dog is a golden retriever. I mean, that's some of the restrictions on the scholarships make it difficult for us to match up students with. And so some of those scholarships are a little tricky. It takes some working through the applicants, but down below there, I did show our scholarship history. We have awarded more scholarships the last 2 years than we had previously, from 146 to 179 to 194,000, and that's obviously what we want to do because we have a lot of money in the foundation to be able to scholarship for students. And getting that out the door not only helps the students, but hopefully will help the institution, because if the foundation is covering all of their costs as far as scholarshiping, we don't have to scholarship a lot of those students institutionally. So it is kind of it should help both the students and the institution pretty significantly if we can get the processes down a little bit to where the foundation is getting scholarship offers out before the institution, Fort Scott, awards all of theirs. I did put on there, it's really small, but this last fall and spring, we were able to cover all Bourbon County high school students, all of their concurrent classes that they took with Fort Scott. We were able to cover all of the cost out of those, which ended up being about an extra $25,000 that we were able to help out those students in up to 6 hours they were able to take. We had some leftover monies that we weren't able to match up with some of the students, and we're able to find ways to where those students were free of charge as far as their what they were looking to take from Fort Scott as well. Okay, the next one, Jason, am I going to be able to access that link down there?
Try.
How do I do it?
Yes.
How do I do it?
Oh.
Maybe this guy. And so Give Campus is a platform that we use to be able to, or that we just started using. We got access to it March 1st. Oops.
You want to go to that?
Just a sec. And so right now it's difficult for us to be able to say, Tom, who is your active donor database? Like, who are your active donors? And it's very difficult, along with our POISE system, to be able to go in and say that this is a list of our active donors. It seems like that's something that should be pretty easy, but we don't have a lot of resources to be able to just say that this is what it is. These are the people that we go to. I've had Carolyn sent over there in the foundation office, and she has been more valuable than gold as far as being able to get a lot of history back into me, telling me who gave what and why they did that, and what the history is behind all of that. This Give Campus platform will be able to allow us to, once somebody donates to us, all of their information will be able to go in, and it's stored in the back end of our website. So it'll allow us to be able to pull those up as far as if we want to contact all of our active donors. In the Give Campus, if we can get it pulled up, we have not ran I can't do it. We haven't ran a campaign yet because we just started with it, but we do have some planned in May. And the example that I had up there was from Drury University, and I was hoping to be able to bring it up just so you guys can see what it would look like, what it will look like for Fort Scott. And here it goes. Okay, and so this was an example for Drury University, and go to the top here. And so this is the exact thing that this will have for Fort Scott. Any of our activities or athletic teams, they'll be able to start a campaign like this. This is Drury University who did an athletics champions challenge. You can see you can set a goal there. You're able to track how many donors are able to give X amount of dollars. There's a video, if I push play right there, the different, ideally students will be able to go in and say, my name is blah, blah. My name is John, I'm raising money for the livestock juggling team. This is what we use this money for. Your donations are greatly appreciated. And any of these, it's a great platform for us just to be able to send donors to, instead of having them fill out a card, which just is not feasible anymore. People don't send stuff back through the mail. We are able to actually take PayPal with this as well, and Venmo, and so both of those options are going to be really advantageous for us. As we go down, it says what the matching and what exactly the programs are going to be. On the left-hand side, you see it says how many people are previous donors and how much that they gave. And down below, this is one of my favorite parts of this, is it says how many, like if we're running a campaign for all of athletics, as an example, as they did, you can see how many donors that they had that raised how much money. And over on the right, it says what those donors' affiliations are. All of that information, as far as a fundraising platform, is going to be very useful for us. Because we can see who is giving back. Is it our current students? Is it alumni? Is it faculty, staff? And it just incentivizes people to, if they see that bass fishing is raising this much money, which I thought was hilarious.
This is Springfield, Missouri.
Yeah, so they actually have a bass.
Yeah,
Oh,
they
yeah.
do.
Yeah.
And they raised $21,000. And so you can see that if women swimming and diving were right below that, somebody who was an alumni for that could go, and it just creates competitions between different platforms who are trying to raise money, which turns fundraising into and donating into kind of a more enjoyable thing, creating competition between different activities. And so it also has a map down here showing you where everyone is coming from. Which is, all of this is just something that we haven't had in the past. We haven't really been able to put something out there and say, this is a campaign, this is a platform that we're running to raise money for a specific organization, and actually see, point somebody towards a direction to where we're able to say, go here. And so this will help us, and once they donate, all of their information is stored, and so we can also start building that active donor database, which within the foundation will be very, very useful. Any questions about this? What's that?
Good to have.
Yeah, it'll be great. We're excited about it, and I think it's one of the best parts about it as well is that we can run as many different campaigns as we want to. And so it's kind of unlimited as far as donate or who can run a campaign, how many times and whatnot. And so it should work out pretty well. So hopefully in the next couple of months, you'll see our first platform go, or our first campaign go out like that. And I'm excited about the possibilities of what it might be able to help us raise some money. Okay, now the foundation events that are coming up for the spring. We have the endowment / foundation dinner on April 12th. May 6th and 7th will be our Hall of Fame weekend. We'll have the athletic banquets on the night of the 6th, and then a golf tournament on the 7th. And then the actual ceremony will be May 7th during the evening. And I put Jolie, Dave, Chris, and Talon are the Hall of Fame inductees this year. And we're looking forward to having all of them back on campus. And then the gala will be July 16th this year during the summer. And so all of those With all of those are actually going to be held in the River Room. And so we're looking forward to that. I would really like to thank the ownership of Dave Lipe. He has really helped us out and slashed costs significantly for us to be able to host those events there. And so thank you to them for helping us out. Lastly, with mine, I wanted to walk through some of our facility updates and put some pictures out there just so you guys can see. The Lions Field baseball field, we are finished with the turf out there. The fencing is done. And so I invite you to go out there and catch a game. Normally we'll play on Thursdays and Saturdays, moving forward with the spring because we are in conference season. But with weather and whatnot, sometimes it pushes it a day or so in one way or the other. But we did already see this last week was the first day that we would have had to cancel a game. Because it rained the day before and we were able to play. And so that's one of the big advantages of being able to have a turf field because we're able to not have to worry about canceling things around, kids missing more class. The field doesn't need to be taken care of. It's just ready. And so it'll be great for us. Softball field, yes, sir.
Can you back that up?
Yep.
What is the box right in the center of that top?
That's my live stream camera.
So it's a camera, okay.
Yep. This is Tri-Color Field. It is finished as well. The turf is. There is some construction that one of the company hit the first base dugout with a piece of machinery and knocked some cinder block loose, and so they're going to come and repair that for us. But we will be playing on this field this week for the first time, and we're very excited about it. It looks fantastic. The girls, they were practicing on the turf practice field out here when we got the green light, and I went out there and I'm like, girls, this is not a softball field. You guys can go up there and practice. And they were ecstatic, and they went running up there, realizing that they left their cars back by the practice field. But just being able to have that for our students and see the enthusiasm and as they just went to be able to practice on their new field was excellent. A little background with these two fields, because it was a significant investment. We are able to eliminate a lot of the field maintenance budgets for the baseball and softball field. Our baseball field costs about $37,000 to $40,000 every single year just to be able to maintain the outfield. And we no longer have to do that. The cost of maintaining this field will be very minimal. And so most of that field maintenance budget will be a cost savings for us. For that, baseball and softball have both pledged to be able to donate $20,000 of their fundraised money towards this project as well. We estimate that our savings in fall travel, because during the fall we can't travel or we can't use these fields because they're just not, we're not able to play on them because the grass is just, there's other places we can play. And so we have in the fall have to go and travel for all of those fall games. That will save us about $12,000 a year as well, because we will host all of those fall games. In early spring, when the weather is like this outside, we're saving about $6,000 in early spring travel because we will host every early like February game now, which will be great. We have previously used LaRoche Field during our early baseball season, but we won't be doing that anymore because we have this field, and so that'll be a savings for us as well. In total, the total athletic contributions and savings is about $97,000 a year. That just savings off of our current budget and the fundraise money coming in to the college. And So it does take care of a lot of the payment that we're making on this field. We don't yet know exactly how much money we'll be able to generate in the tournaments that we're running. And that's a huge reason why I wanted to be able to do that softball field with Ty Color, is to host those fall or summer tournaments. We don't know how much money that we're going to be making on those yet, but all of that money that's generated through that will also go to the turf payment. And so I think that we will be able to have a pretty good handle on the amount of money that we're actually spending on it. And Fort Scott is not necessarily known as having top rate facilities, just because it's just been you know how it is. It's an arms race and it's difficult for us to keep up. These are both going to be top rate facilities that puts us right next to Johnson County, which is phenomenal, and will make recruiting that much easier and bring in a lot of people to our town and our complex. This last weekend with the Fort games being, I had them run the CrossFit stuff at our turf practice field out there while we were running games, and that was intentional, and we got a lot of traffic going over saying, wow, this is a great looking field, and that's exactly what we're looking for. And so it's very easy to see that it's a top rate facility, and we're excited to have them. So any questions on those? All right, very quickly, the facility update on the Greyhound Fitness Complex. We have the equipment in there. It's looking great. There's just some minor things that we're patching up. You can see the weight room equipment is top notch. It's excellent. The students love it. The only thing that we're waiting on with the equipment is the bumper plates that have our logo on them, because they're being shipped from somewhere overseas, and it takes forever to be able to get them in. We do have the turf down. Hopefully this week we'll be able to get the batting cages up, and that facility will be open for all of our athletic teams as soon as this week, and we will open it with some certain hours for people to be able to, like community, to be able to go in and use it as well, as soon as we get all of the updates and everything solidified. And I think that's it. Any questions?
And the first part of what I want to talk to you about is the handout that has the grant applications on it. I tried to organize it in a way that makes sense to me, so hopefully it'll make sense to you too. It's a little bit convoluted and hard to wrap your head around. In the first part, I included Camp, Hep, and Trio. And while Trio is not a migrant program, all three of those grants are grants that we apply for. The staff that work in those grants, along with the grant writer, apply for that award every 5 years. Camp and Hep are in their first year of the new renewal, and Trio is in their second year. So they're all recently renewed and are continuing, and they all have a little bit of institutional tie-in with their staff. So I went ahead and included Trio, even though that's not a migrant program. So the Camp program is the first one, and Camp is the program that will assist first-year college students that fall under the eligibility guidelines as migrant, and that can include seasonal farm workers. So a lot of our ag students that come to Fort Scott Community College are able to benefit from that program, and it can provide a wide range of support for those students. That Camp group really takes those first-year students by the hand and walks them through. So from financial aid assistance, helping them figure out how to maneuver through that process and application, to providing tutoring, requiring that they go to tutoring. It's not just, it's available if you want to use it. Those students have to go and meet with their tutor. They come in and meet with mentoring and all of those different aspects. they provide those first-year students a laptop, and then when they finish their first year, if they maintain a 3.0 GPA, those students get to keep that laptop then, and it will go on through college with them. But that program really is a hands-on for that first-year student. So that is considered a migrant program because it can support those migrant students, but also supports the seasonal farm worker students that can qualify under those eligibility guidelines. The next one is the Hep program, which is the high school equivalency program. That is truly migrant students. Those students or those individuals are students needing to complete their GED. And as you can see, we have various locations. We have employees that reach out to those instructors. We have instructors and tutors at those individual sites. We set up the testing. The Hep program can provide Hep reimbursement for childcare, for transportation for those individuals working to get their high school equivalency. And so once they have completed that, part of that Hep requirement then is that they go on to be actively employed, or they go into the military, or they go into post-secondary education as well. So there's some follow-up guidelines with that. Then of course, TRIO provides to our students, that's not a migrant program, and so there's a little description there, TRIO. But the one thing that I mentioned that the three of those have in common are some institutional crossover to help with staffing. So CAMP employs a tutor, which is Susan Benson, and so CAMP pays for half of her salary. Well, then TRIO and institutionally we pitch in for the rest of her salary. So she is able to provide tutoring for every student across campus that needs it, with CAMP picking up a piece of that. And then in the Hep program, we have brought Santos Manrique on as the institutional coordinator. So he works for Hep in that capacity, but then he still maintains his responsibilities as the associate dean in our Pittsburgh locations. So he's wearing a lot of hats, but his experience and his background has been very beneficial with those migrant families and reaching out to those instructors and being able to communicate to that particular group of individuals in a way that makes them feel comfortable and makes them feel accepted. And so he's been able to kind of join those two pieces together. So all three of those, and then when you get to the TRIO staff, if it weren't for the TRIO staff, we wouldn't be able to manage the Student Success Center and the tutoring program. Jody Moreau has 2 months of her salary is paid institutionally, so she directs Student Success Center and the tutoring program. Stacy Bishop also has a month of institutional buy-in, so she also helps with the tutoring. Again, Susan Benson comes in there as tutoring, but all of that TRIO staff really stands up those programs. And when it's a community member coming in, or if it's a student coming in, they jump right in and help them. And so it's been very beneficial to have the TRIO offices right there with the Student Success Center where all the tutoring is needing and the computer labs are for community and student use. So those programs are beneficial to us, not only from the students that they're helping, but from a staffing perspective, that grant money is then able to help stand up some of those positions. The next part is more of what we consider just the migrant education. And Fort Scott Community College is the fiscal agent and directs these special projects. This is the part that gets really convoluted. So the first little chart there is the one that Jennifer Quick sends out. And I put it in there because that is beneficial for me, because she gives us not only what all of the acronyms stand for, but also just some hints on what those programs do. So we have MEP-A, which is Migrant Education Program, MEP-A and MEP-B. And so out of that money, that's money that comes from OME, which is the Office of Migrant Education, to the state. Then from the state, it comes down to us. And so that way, MEP is able to send money to us. We can house it for them, and then when they need to use it, whether it's professional development or if it is supplies for a program, they do a lot of parent involvement kind of conferences, and sometimes there's childcare involved when you're bringing parents in. And so then they can utilize that money for those things. They can utilize it for travel if they need to do that. A lot of those migrant grants restrict your travel so that you are not able to use specific parts of that to travel out of state.
And so they write into their grants that they can have a fiscal agent manage that money for them. And so they can send that to us. And then if they do have travel out of state, they can use those travel funds for that as well. But if you look at the migrant A and migrant B, and then there's one called iSoci and GoSoci. GoSoci is just what it used to be in the previous grant cycle. When they reapply, they have to change the name. So it went from the GoSoci to iSoci. So that's out of school youth. And so those are migrant individuals who are no longer in school, and those are programs to go back in and help them to continue working for their high school credits and graduation. Then there's an IDRC and an IRRC. Again, IRRC was the previous grant cycle, so that name has changed. So that's the identification and recruitment piece. And those are individuals that go out and maybe go to a meatpacking plant and find people that are maybe working there and have families that could benefit from some of the migrant programs. And so they make that connection. We have advocates that work with the families, that work with the schools, and work as liaisons to help process through that. The Iowa project is from the Iowa Department of Education. And again, they write into their migrant education grant that they can have a third party manage part of these funds so that they can then use that for special projects. And so we are that entity for Iowa. And then Jennifer put in the past, and we'll talk a little bit about that later on. But like I said, I really like her explanations of all of the acronyms and what they mean. She also includes the cycles that they run on. Some of them run, July 1, some of them don't start until August 1. And so everything's on a different cycle. And so this little chart is very handy for me just to be able to pull out and look at what those programs are and kind of how their cycles run and what the administrative piece is out of that. So you can kind of look at those numbers. And I know it can be confusing, and I know it can kind of get caught in a circle, and it's hard to sometimes get out of that wheel. But these are programs that are very beneficial to the school, and not only just in the personnel piece that I mentioned, but the administrative piece that we get to keep out of all of that money that comes to us that goes to help the institution. And so that's included there as well. The next one that I put down here is National Pass. So National Pass is a membership, and we currently have, I think, about 6 states that are members, and so they pay a fee to National Pass. And so that National Pass is Portable Assisted Study Sequence is what the PASS stands for. For students that are migratory, their families are moving. And I know last year our scholarship winner, home base is Florida. They travel all the way to Michigan or Minnesota throughout the year as crops are ripening and they're moving. And for her to be able to maintain her credits and her grade point average and to graduate when she wanted to be able to graduate, she was never in the same school district long enough to be able to do that. And so this program allows her mentor to access the curriculum, and she's able to work on her courses. So for a student like that, they can take those courses with them. Right now, it's still a hard print. We are working on making it more online accessible. We have a gentleman that's out of Florida that puts they use Canvas where we use Blackboard, but he has a lot of it already set up on Canvas. And if a particular school or student is working with one of those learning management systems, he can go in and kind of help their mentor know how to set it up if they need to do it that way. It's also a good way for a student that maybe is just a few hours short of graduation. They can access this material, they can complete it during their time. Like as the gal I was just mentioning from Florida, her tutor mentor was telling me that she would like text her at 10 o'clock at night, can I go in and do the quiz for this, whatever? And she's like, no, let's wait and do it tomorrow. Because the young lady would go to school. She would then go work in the family's farm stand after school, and she had younger siblings that she was watching, and sometimes it was 10:30, 11 o'clock before she could get to the material. So it gives them access outside of traditional school hours, and it's a beneficial program for those students that need it. And so those states that have that high migratory population utilize it a lot more so. The annual cost for us, a state, it varies based on what their OME, their Office of Migrant Education's allotment is. And so it ranges anywhere from $8,000 a year to $15,000, depending on the state and the size of their allotment. The courses are aligned with the states that are members. Our courses are aligned with their state requirements as well as Common Core. The next part is the past dissemination. And so that is something that still provides the same material, but for non-migrant students. And that is, again, run out of here. So Jennifer Quick and Pam Hightower here on campus take care of this program. And I included a list of everyone that is currently ordering from them this year. And so you can see they have quite a wide range of school districts or juvenile detention centers or boys' homes that need material to help their students get some credit accrual and to be able to complete their high school equivalencies and their high school courses while they're at those locations. And so those are sold to those school districts for $70 per course. And because they use the National Pass curriculum, the National Pass gets, I think it's about $7 off of each course sale goes into our revenue line out of that. But that is run. Jennifer and Pam do a good job with that. Jennifer and Pam also take care of that whole list of those migrant Met A, Met B, ISOC, GOSOC, IDRC, all of those things that come out of there. We have some really phenomenal staff that take care of all those things. So take your time and read through those things. If you have questions, if there's things you think of later on when it comes to migrant education, shoot me an email or give me a call and we'll try to get you some answers. The other thing that I brought was the kind of an update on Bailey Hall. And I just kind of wanted to put some pretty pictures in there of what we're doing. The first one is just blueprints. And so I know those are small and they're hard to see, but you can get a little bit of an idea of just the basics. When you get to the pictures where it shows more of what it's actually going to look like, those are the same pictures that we put on boards and put in the hallways. The one thing that is not in here is the restrooms, the faculty restrooms there in the main hallway. We needed to have some ADA compliant restrooms in our building. We didn't have any outside of those that are in the hallway, and those are identified as faculty, so students were hesitant to use them. So we're going to redo those restrooms. There'll be one large ADA compliant restroom in the hallway. And then in the faculty lounge, there'll be another one on the back side of that. So that's another piece of construction that they just kind of started blocking off today. But it'll be beautiful, as you can see the stairs that go up to the library, that upper level up there is going to have a computer lab. It will have some study rooms. It will have a conference room. This very end room at the end of this that has windows where you can overlook down to the rest of it is going to be the conference room. And so that'll be a great place for admissions to bring families in and be able to sit there overlooking all of this new area to be able to kind of showcase what we have to offer. So that's exciting. We did a lot of displacing people, getting everybody moved for construction. So IT and maintenance worked like crazy the week before spring break. Getting everybody moved, and things changed from day to day. From what we expected to happen one day, didn't, and something else was happening. And so moving all these people and getting their technologies set up in their new locations was a huge hurdle, but we've gotten everybody, I think, kind of situated, and we've got the temporary walls up and watching students come in this morning and trying to figure out where to go and how to get there. It was kind of like rats through a maze, trying to work their way through, but it's going to be exciting, and I'm thrilled to have it happening. I did include just kind of a timeline on the back of when things are supposed to happen. Of course, with construction, we know it's probably not always going to stick to that timeline, but we're hopeful. And it is going to be beautiful when it's finished, and so it's exciting to see that happen in Bailey Hall. Any questions? All right, thank you.
Thank you, Jen.
All right, Adam.
I believe I have the last part of the work and planning session before the regular board meeting, and I also have the shortest update. So talking about new programs, no handouts for you like we did with CDL and nursing. But the primary new program that we are focused on right now is heavy equipment operator. So heavy equipment operation is a program where we have a portion of it already offered. Essentially what we're going to, and we've looked at offering in Pittsburgh and Lynn County at the technical center, but the class is going, or the program is set up with 8 credit hours on the front end, which is intro to craft skills, our safety orientation OSHA 10, and an intro to heavy equipment. And then it stacks on a heavy equipment 1, heavy equipment 2, and heavy equipment 3 and 4. And that rounds out, there's 4 credit hours a piece, with the exception of heavy equipment 4, which is a 5 credit hour program. We've had several industries come to us to say we need heavy equipment operators. City of Pittsburgh, Crawford County, City of Pleasanton, Nabholz, and Crossland. And with the support of them, we believe that the program will be extremely successful and extremely popular. We are asking for the program to be SB 155 eligible. Most of the classes should be, so we would anticipate quite a few high school students. We did apply for a Spark grant for the simulators for the program. My level of optimism is not high, I'll be perfectly honest, and the simulators are about $80,000 a piece.
Well, supposedly last Friday the legislature moved some money over specifically for us, not for us, Fort Scott, but for community colleges, meaning that if you had a match, you should get it now. That's what I was told. We'll see. I get really optimistic and then I get dashed, so.
I tend to be more of a glass half empty person when it comes to things like this. So that's the heavy equipment operation program in a nutshell. It's a very, very basic heavy equipment operation. We're looking at excavating, backhoes, grading, dump trucks, and items like that on the front end. There's a lot more you can go into depth with it, but we're not getting into the site layout, those types of items. So ours is more on just the operation, reading blueprints and that type of thing is included within those heavy equipment, those more advanced heavy equipment operation classes. So civil blueprint reading is going to be utilized within the NCCER curriculum. Other programs to just address through some discussions with CHC, they've mentioned a couple of programs they would like for us to look at. So medical assistant would be one of them, which kind of takes our CNA, CMA program and amps it up a little bit. They've also, with the new construction, they're looking at radiation tech. So Robert, I know that might be right up your alley.
About it, Robert.
So be exploring the feasibility of it. Like I said, I'm not necessarily the most optimistic person in some of these cases, but definitely exploring feasibility. And then the last one we would be looking at Alicia's request is aesthetics.
I couldn't say that.
So
I've been hammering on it for
2 years now.
3.
All right. Just a quick update on the programs that are going to be offered in Pleasanton. To start off with, construction trades, criminal justice, and welding. EMT for the spring. They are trying, the Pleasanton School District is trying to get all the equipment to offer an HVAC program right now up there as well. The pre-enrollment numbers I think I talked about last month, but over 80 high school students in pre-enrolled to take classes in Pleasanton. And all of those are SB 155 classes, so that is good news 2 years down the road. So that is and we would be looking at heavy equipment operation once the program will be finalized with the state.
Okay, the 80 throughout Lynn County.
Yes, yeah, that would be Lacey, so Prairie View, Jayhawk, and Pleasanton. Lewisburg is considering sending students there as well. Okay. So there could be another. Right now, the most amount of credit hours we generate from any school district is Lewisburg, that are high school students only. Most of those are concurrent. Not as many of them on the Excel and CTE, that's been on 55 stage. So Lewisburg is considering sending students. But the numbers I have not shown anything yet. So I'm hopeful that Lewisburg will send students as well. Any other questions?
Yeah, my son would be happy to help.
We'd be happy to have you.
Well, let's do a cost analysis first. Okay.
Well, the thing is, CHC is going to have the imaging equipment there, because they'll have that and they would allow us to use that then as a lab clinical site. So it really is an opportunity, because now there's a huge demand for x-ray techs. And they can do, of course, x-rays, and then you can also get certifications in ultrasound, and so it's $1,000. And so I believe it's an excellent opportunity for people in the community to get into a program that, just like the nursing and many programs that we have, it really moves people into the middle class. I mean, it is a family sustaining wage. That's great. And we need those medical people. And so if we can do it, I just hope we can do it. As you can tell, he's like, oh, if there's a will, there's a way. Sometimes.
Who's got the will? Who's on the will?
Dave, that's exactly what I'm tell him, listen.
I'm a slow order, but I'm getting better. Thank you. All right, thank you.
Well, I apologize to everybody for running over. Like I said, hopefully you'll have some opportunity later to sort of digest this and internalize the information. We will come back in June and do another working session and see if there are some things that you guys have discerned from this that you think, hey, this doesn't meet the mission, this does. There's some things we need to change with strategy and in terms of the vision that you have in terms of the directions that we need to go. Of course, as always, vision is tied to budget, and so we will also have for you in that June meeting at least some preliminary budget analysis and requests about what we will be needing for fiscal year, because we're already close to getting into fiscal year 23. So anyway, so I apologize for the delay, Jason and Rob, I'm sorry. There's lots of snacks back there. But anyway, and I just want to say too, you can see how fortunate we are to have such great people here. That includes you, the board, and the executive committee, all the people that help do the things they do. Rob, his faculty, I mean, everybody holds a huge piece of this institution, this community up, and it's greatly appreciated. It's something that really does take a huge team effort, because you can see with the things that we do, you can't be an expert in all these areas. You have to have these individual people like Janet and Adam and Julie and Tom and Jason and everybody that know their area, that bring that to the table. And so I'm just super fortunate to be able to work with them, and I appreciate it. So life's good, I guess.
I imagine, well, there's still only Jason as on the Zoom thing.
I don't know.
Well, anyway,
There's 4. I'm one of the 4. Yes.
So I'm probably.
okay. Well, if someone out of this room is on the Zoom, we're starting an hour late. We had this planning session and it ran over what we were thinking that it was going to. So as of this point, we will have the roll call for the regular board meeting. Sorry, I dragged that out too far.
You could have dragged it out a little bit further. I'm not quite.
As I was thinking, no, go ahead. When you're ready, Julie.
All right, John Bartlesmeyer.
Here.
Jim Fewens.
Yes.
Dave Elliott.
Here.
Kirk Hart.
Here.
Brian Holt.
Here.
Robert Nelson.
Here. Please stand with me for the pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Oh, don't skip over. I have no comments, and do we have any comments from the public? Okay. Just a second. The consent agenda, approval of the agenda, approval of minutes, previous meetings, attached to the minutes, the board training and regular board meeting conducted February 21st, 2022. Approval of treasurer's report, bills and claims attached to the treasurer's report and the bills and claims report. Approval of personnel actions, additions, Tricia Ham, head volleyball coach effective March 1st, 2022. D. Yount, assistant cheer, dance coach, effective March 1st, 2022. Sarah Smith, financial aid officer, effective March 2nd, 2022. Marcus Page, director of admissions, effective March 21st, 2022. Separations, Deborah Cummings, business instructor, effective June 1st, 2022. Kathy Malone, math instructor, effective June 1st, 2022. And Darlene Wood, assistant to the president, research and education learning specialist, Perkins Grant coordinator, EWT coordinator, effective June 1st, 2022. It is the recommendation that the consent agenda items be approved as presented. Is there any discussion?
Other than, I know a couple of these folks are probably retirees.
All three,
We should appreciate everything they've done for us. I know personally, a couple of them have really put a lot of time, effort, and love into the institution, so.
We threatened that we really weren't going to accept any of their
Yes.
retirements.
I believe all of them have been employed for over 25 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, they've
Yeah.
given their heart and soul.
And I was going to say something to that extent too. I know all three of these people and they're just, not only are they great instructors and especially for Darlene as assistant president, they're great people,
Yes,
really,
they are.
really good people. And it's not going to be easy to replace them.
I've been trying to ignore it, but.
How's that work?
I will entertain a motion.
So moved. I'll second it.
Moved and seconded. Julie, would you call for the vote?
Hewens,
Yes.
Hart,
Yes.
Holt,
Yes.
Nelson,
Yes.
Bartlesmeyer,
Yes.
Elliott.
Yes.
Okay. Can anybody help me with the page number?
All right, 57.
57.
Okay, let's try this, see what happens. Whoa, okay, thank you. Item A, consideration of tuition and fees for 2022-23. Following are proposed tuition and fees for the 2022-23 academic year. Tuition and fees per credit hour are unchanged. Where program or other fees reflect proposed adjustments from the current fee, and explanation for the change is provided. It is recommended that the board approve tuition and fees for 2022-23. Are there any comments?
I would like to comment just a minute.
Okay, Julie.
Number one, the fees did change. Tuition did not change, but fees did change. So I wanted you to be aware of that.
Is this from 55 to 58?
Yes.
Okay.
One of the things we do with this, just so you're aware of the process and what goes into it, is that each program or each class that has a fee listed here, which is above and beyond tuition and fees, do a review of the cost of their supplies and needs for the classroom. So it's not just a random number that's thrown out there. It is something that they do a detailed cost for, especially like cosmetology and nursing. That's quite a list that they go through of the supplies they use and that type of thing. So we do look at the program fees, look at room and board. We did an analysis this year of what our costs are for the dorms, try to include utilities in there and that type of thing, and then come up and make sure that we are covering our costs and being reasonable with what we're charging the students. That is one of the is it KBOR or?
Well, this is a legislative
Yeah.
statute that
That they-
basically it's the transparency bill. If you look at our website, it shows what our fees are used for, but we need to drill down more and say, so if I'm charging somebody a fee for something, I need to be able to justify why that fee is there. And that's, so it's part of information, consumer information that folks need. And there was a bill that passed specifically for that 2 years ago in the Kansas legislature. So.
Thank you.
Well, I noticed some of the fees actually went down.
A few did. I know particularly in cosmetology, they no longer have a state kit that they have to go to the state and take their boards, so that one went down. Tried to give you comments out there of any changes as to why. We are experiencing significant changes in cost. I got another letter today of a 9% increase from a vendor that furnishes us all our stuff and a lot of stuff that we use. And so,
But there's no doubt you're gonna have a lot of things go up as far as
Yeah.
I can see. Any questions?
So how do we compare to other community colleges? Where do we fall?
for our tuition and fees, we had a meeting of all the business officers right before spring break. Most of them were recommending a $2 to $3 increase in tuition and fees. We're recommending a $3 increase. For room and board, which we did not, for room, not board, for room, they were going up about $200, some of them are not. We are not going to increase ours. We feel like we're still covering our expenses related to that, and so we did not. A lot of our other community colleges, a lot of them are with Great Western Dining, and so they were seeing a 6% increase just like us for food costs. Food is not only food, but the plates, the utensils, that type of thing is really creating a backlog. Sometimes it's kind of interesting what you get out there because they can't get the food in, or they can't get paper supplies in like they should, and so it's a real challenge. That help?
Jim, I can provide you with, it won't be an updated one, but I can provide you with exactly what everybody's tuition fees are.
I kind of have an idea where it's at, so.
If you total our tuition fees, we're certainly on the lower end of what the 19
Yeah.
community colleges. There are some that are cheaper than us. There's some that are more expensive, but we're very affordable.
What would the impact be to like the average student in one of these programs? I mean, they're gonna see their cost to attend go up by 5%, 10%, 2%, or?
Well, $3 on fees, that's going to affect every student. So that would, a full-time student is going to pay for 12 hours, $36 extra.
Okay.
Then it just depends on what program they're in. For cosmetology, I was trying to think, they're going to have.
I think a good example might be construction with the price of lumber and
Yeah.
supplies there. Those students are probably going to see a significant increase compared to a traditional student, maybe $200 a semester.
Yeah.
That type of thing, $250 a semester.
However, it will not have an effect on high school
Correct.
students.
Right.
Yeah.
Because the way it works with SB 155 is we're not allowed to charge tuition or fees. And so that money comes from the state. It's a different bucket of money. So we have a tiered bucket of money, which is technical programs for post-secondary. We have what we call a non-tiered bucket of money, which would be your college algebras and comp ones for post-secondary students. Then we have, and actually secondary students come out of that as well. So concurrent, different than SB 155. SB 155 are those technical programs that are eligible that high school students take. So most of our tech hours now are SB 155.
Right.
Because we're kind of inversely related to the economy. Well, we definitely are, especially when you're talking about technical programs. It's hard when they can go to work for day to make good money to get students to see the benefit of getting that certificate for that degree. And so, you know, and our enrollment is down, especially in those tech programs. They're great programs, they will come back, but so it will, but like he said, it's going to be $36 for 12 hours. I mean, most people are going to take 12 a semester. And then some of them will see increases in those individual fees. We had some that went down, like they said, but it's a good question what you have on percentage. I don't know. We should, like, if I had my phone here, I'd be like, yeah, but I can't put phone division in my head.
Is there an opportunity, because if I read your, Julie, your really good presentation, right? Is there an opportunity to use some of that, the funding for the student grant, the HERP
Like we did
grant?
this year.
Like we talked about that.
To offset, I mean, just for a year, I mean,
We
as you mentioned,
certainly,
things are getting so much more expensive.
everything is.
And if there's a way to keep driving that up for students and just see what happens over the next year.
We did that this year and paid all general fees for all students for this academic year using the.
And I'm not saying pay their fees per se, but does it, I don't even know if I'm asking the question.
You're exactly asking the question right, and we just talked about it this morning. So one of the things that I think Julie mentioned was that they did extend the deadline for the use of those federal HERF dollars, both institutional and student. So now we have until June 30th, 2023.
Right.
So we were concerned about how we would get the rest of the student HERF money to the students and make that so it's an equitable sharing of the dollars, which I'll just be honest, we've never made everybody happy with that because it's more difficult than one would think. So that's what we talked about this morning. Because they extended the deadline, we don't have enough money left to pay the $55 in general fees for every student.
Right.
But we believe, and we have a deadline on using what we have out there. We will take a look at it and say, okay, maybe we can give you $10 off your fees per credit hour. And maybe we could do 5. And so what you're asking is exactly what we were talking about.
Yeah.
And a good point, because what I think that we forget sometimes is that even for some of our students, a $20, $25 increase is a hurdle that they have trouble with, especially when we're talking about high school students. We've kind of gotten the high school thing taken care of, but on the tech side, not on the concurrent side. So that's an excellent point. I think actually this is
Any more discussion?
So for general classes, a student comes in for general classes. A semester, 16 hours, would cost that student how much? Books, fees, tuition.
Where's the student live?
Where's the student live?
Yeah. Are they Bourbon County or?
Well, Kansas resident.
Let's do Bourbon County.
Bourbon County.
It doesn't matter after you get out of it, yeah.
Yeah, Bourbon County is their first concern.
Hang on. So they would pay 47 for tuition plus 58.
58
So that's $105 per credit hour.
credit hour,
Times how many credit hours?
16.
16. That's $975.
Then books,
But they're not really, the Bourbon County
Bourbon
student
County.
isn't really paying that.
Right, Bourbon County tuition waivers.
I mean, you're Bourbon County tuition waiver.
Yeah, if they fill out the form, they get a waiver, so it'd be $58 a credit hour.
And they're eligible for every endowment scholarship.
Yeah, so you get Bourbon County,
well, yeah. Part of that is getting what it would cost, and then the stipends off of that.
okay,
Scholarships,
And basically, because we own our own bookstore now, anybody that has a tuition scholarship, their books come free.
yeah. So a Bourbon County student can basically almost attend free unless they're taking some program like biology or something that has an, welding, something like that, that has an additional supply cost.
Yes, but I'm just talking about if you're going to classes, no tech.
Yeah. Then they
Basically, if they
basically,
live in Bourbon County, it's paid for. So,
Not completely, but,
it's
close.
gotta be pretty close.
well, this year it is because we've paid all their fees. Now, that doesn't
But
say
there
they
would
can't
be-
get additional
but it-
scholarships to pay those fees.
There's certainly an opportunity to do it for free.
Okay.
I don't want to say that it's free
Yeah,
because
if
it's
if
not.
the student looks into it with the right people, it should be close.
Bourbon County kids are going to get, all Bourbon County residents qualify. So it's going to be very, very affordable for them to come here. There are some additional fees though, like we talked about. If you're taking a science course, if you take Rob's chemistry course, there's some additional fees there.
Yeah, now, the next question on that, our service area.
We don't differentiate in terms of service area. So basically.
Okay, so it's out of county.
Anything outside of Bourbon County is how much?
62 for tuition.
Yeah.
Okay.
Fees are the same.
And fees are 58, so 120.
Okay.
Per credit hour.
We went to that more generalized breakdown of tuition dollars, which actually brought us more money. It was really Tom's idea. We did it 3 years ago.
Yeah.
I can't recall. It's been beneficial. But we gave the Bourbon County the 47, everybody else the 62. One of the reasons that when you look at a lot of the different institutions, tuition and fees, something that sometimes it's hard to explain anymore, you see that tuition is actually cheaper than fees. The reason is because we scholarship so many students and not as many as a lot of the institutions do, frankly, that it doesn't bring you any extra dollars to your general fund to up tuition because you're basically waiving it anyway. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So that's why you see that differential there that you didn't used to see nearly as much of. Where, you know, your tuition stays super low, but your fees keep increasing.
Then we have an out-of-state fee, but don't we have like in neighboring counties in Missouri?
Well, for us now, if you're out of state, it's $62.
Okay.
So we
only
went to
have
that
free
as
tuition
opposed to,
rate.
now we do have an international cost. We have very few international students. Not that my coaches don't want them. I'm like, we can't, I'm sorry, we just can't afford them. We can't. That's a whole nother story. And I'm the mean one and I'm like, nope. We can't compete without them. You're gonna have to try. But international students do pay an increase. We do have what, 2, 3, 4, I don't know.
Like 8,
Yeah, 8.
10, yeah.
There's always more than I think. I'm like, where'd they come from?
Well, they're not all.
They're not
athletes.
all.
We have some nursing students that are international students too. And a Harley student.
Yeah, we do have a Harley student. Never seen this talking about that.
Any more discussion?
I think I get your point, though. It'd be great marketing to just show, and we try to do
Yes.
that. Is that what you're trying to do?
Yeah, my idea was we need to get that out there. If you're in Bourbon County, you can almost get free education for the rest of the year. That's what I tell people. At least get the first 2 years.
I do the same thing. I tell them it's a great way to save money on the first 2 years of college.
And you don't create that debt, which is huge.
It's part of it, yeah. Okay. For the third time. I'll entertain a motion.
Awesome.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Julie, would you call for the vote, please?
Hart,
Yes.
Holt,
No.
Nelson,
Yes.
Bartlesmeyer,
Yes.
Elliott,
Yes.
Hewens.
Yes.
Item B, selection of honorary associate degree recipient. The Board of Trustees approved the honorary degree policy in 2019 to provide a formal method to honor individuals who have demonstrated outstanding service to Fort Scott Community College and to recognize persons whose lives serve as examples of the college's aspirations for its students. Okay, any discussion about who to think about for this? Or are there any nominations?
I think we talked about Bernita Hill.
Do you have a recommendation, Robert?
Well, you just did.
Oh.
Robert and I recommend Bernita Hill.
Any other recommendations? I'm guessing that's going to be a first and a second. Is that, I mean, a motion and a second.
Motion and a second? Sure it is.
Okay. The second, third. Okay. It is recommended that the board select a recipient for the 2021-22 honorary degree. Bernita Hill has been recommended and motion and second. So Julie, would you call for the vote?
Nelson,
Yes.
Bartlesmeyer,
Yes.
Elliott,
Yes.
Stevens,
Yes.
Hart.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, very good. Now, who contacts Bernita or?
I did contact her to see if she was nominated, would she be interested, and she said she would be delighted.
Okay, we're so good at.
Excellent. Okay.
What?
Just teasing Brian, in 4 years, Julie will get Myers off here and hold.
Where? Oh, I lifted an old, look at the other one, I promise.
Oh, okay, okay.
I think I promise. Look at the page above.
Look at the
I
next
guess you
one.
don't get to vote on this, Brian.
Sometimes when I think I've really got it going on, I just do not.
Okay.
Understand.
Consideration of letter of intent with CH.
You're just testing us, just to make sure we're paying attention.
One of us passed and the other failed.
Okay, item C, consideration of letter of intent with CHCSEK.
That would be me.
Okay.
You can see that the letter of intent is not a legal binding contract, but it is, I mean, it does commit us, obviously. The reason that we would not do a contract until March of 2023, there's a couple of things. There are more logistic things, frankly. CHC is getting ready to work on, they're getting ready to redo the Price Chopper building. So they're hoping to be in their new refurbished building in November of this year, which is probably pretty optimistic line. They, though, do need a place that they may go to should they not be able to get to that building by November or December at the end of this year. And so they want to hold that other building. Actually, there's nothing in there now. There were a few offices. Now we're talking about the building, of course, on Horton Street that has the VA clinic. The VA is there. CHC did have a few employees there that were non-patient touching. So they basically would just answer the phone and do some of that, but they are not housed there any longer. So we would then take possession, so should we do the contract in March of 2023. It says there that, you can look at the letter of intent. I believe the price is 480. Sorry, I gotta get down to that part. What is it? 480 something.
483,000.
Because I did ask them, just a couple of things. It says in the letter of intent that it was whatever the valuation is, which did go up on the building this year, but they said that they would agree to what the valuation was when they looked it up right before new valuations came out. For some reason, so there it is, 482,870. Another thing that we talked about was we do have some Snyder money that has been set aside for the nursing program. It started out at 500,000, but a very generous donation by the Snyders, whom I did not know, but I believe some of you probably do know the family. And that has grown to over 600,000. Now, moving into the building would require us to remodel that building, and you have the blueprints there. We would do, most of the remodel though is relatively minor. It would be moving of walls, that kind of thing, increasing classroom size. That would be done hopefully internally by our maintenance people. The cost of materials right now though are outrageous. And so we honestly don't know exactly what that would cost. My suggestion would be that we allow them to finance it at 2.5%. It's a lease purchase agreement then, which we would own the building in 10 years. But we do have the money to buy it outright, but then we might not have the money to do the repurposing and remodeling that we need. So, you know, and then if you look at the cost of money down the road, you know, we would hope that we'd be saving quite a bit at this 2.5. We do have an example of another lease purchase agreement. We're in a 6th year, Julie?
I think closer to
7.
almost 8, but definitely 7. You're talking about.
It was right after when I got here, so it's 7.
Yeah, because we'll be here.
We have a
7
lease purchase agreement on the Harley building. The only thing about that building is it's not in our taxing district, and so if anybody ever decides to kick us out, they can say you don't. Yeah, it's not our.
When
service
did
area.
we get into a lease purchase on the Harvard building?
Right before I got here.
Okay, that's wonderful. Because we used to fight that tooth and nail. They didn't want to release that. They wanted to keep that building.
How much do we pay? Quite a bit.
76,000 a year, I think.
Yeah,
66.
76
Yeah.
plus, yeah, on that one.
Yeah, there's a cash cow for it. Question, any idea what CHC purchased that building for?
No, they had the building given to them. Yeah, and that was the original intent. Mercy gave them the building, but now because you know how I get a little over optimistic. When we first started talking, it was gonna be, we're gonna give it to you. I'm like, yes, this is great. And because you know, we've needed a place to go so badly.
The
We
proposed.
looked at everything, written a grant,
The
everything.
proposed facility on campus was like 1.2 to 1.5 million.
Yeah, and we wrote a Sunderland grant for that. But brick and mortar grants are super hard to come by. We can get grants for curriculum development and win a trip and whatever, but we have trouble. Brick and mortar grants are super hard to come by. And that's what we've been using that 500,000 for, is seed money. It's like, hey, we've got this to put in. So where can we go from there? The reason that they're now charging us for the building, I say now, they never officially said they wouldn't charge us for the building. We just have talked about it, is because they obviously need cash for their remodel at Price
$8.5
Chopers.
million.
They also have for sale their walking clinic.
The what?
And I don't want to be speaking out of turn. I did tell Krista we were visiting tonight about all this, but yeah, their walking clinic down there is for sale too.
Oh, okay.
Because that will move to that Price
Yeah.
Shoppers area. And so one of the things that in our negotiations and our visiting is, hey, like we have talked about, I believe the biggest threat to the sustainability of the nursing program are be able to attract and retain nursing faculty. And so that was one of the deals with having classrooms down there and being able to work with them for faculty. We have been down at least one, and most of the time 2 nursing faculty since I've been here. We also get written up all the time on that for accreditation. So we get written up for 2 things on accreditation. Your people are working too much overtime, which is a big no-no. And these facilities, you know, you can't get anything, the water doesn't drain, we have all kinds of issues out there. So that was part of this sort of ongoing talk. And I don't want people to think it's an either or situation, you know, either we go with CHC, or for instance, we go with Noble Group, which we've had some visits with Noble, but you know, they don't have anything right now. So sometimes you have to look at bird in the hand is better than two in the bush. And so, you know, but we need everybody to work together on being able to have this eccentric program that we can provide these we can provide the education for medical workers that are badly needed here in Bourbon County, you know, and in this area and basically across the nation. And to be able to do that in an affordable way and still have that opportunity for our people to get those types of degrees. And so that's what we're trying to do. But we're going to need everybody. As you heard Jordan say, once Mercy left, our ability to provide clinical sites,
I
it
know
became
that
very
is a
difficult.
real struggle.
It's huge, yeah. That, and like I said, also retaining nursing faculty,
Yeah.
because we use a lot of their nursing people for clinical
Yeah.
faculty.
Why would you want to come to nursing school here when you have to go to your clinicals in Iowa, Snood, or Nevada?
It's something we've struggled with,
Or job.
yes.
When I could go to Neosho County or a big
But
county.
you not want to, and we don't want to. But yes, that's an excellent point. I mean, but like I said, it's not either we do this or we, I mean, you know, it's not an either or situation. We're gonna have to use everybody and everything that can help us to stand up these programs, these medical programs. Someone told me if you want a nursing program, you should just put money in a bucket and set it on fire one time, because that's how expensive they are.
Yeah,
But
well, also there's, the VA is paying $1,700 per month.
yeah,
Okay.
And there's really not an option for the Burke Street building. And what's the deadline on that? Because you had a certain amount of
yeah,
time.
10
right?
years. When is our 10-year with the Kansas Department? So they got that 3 years ago or 2 years ago?
2018.
I lose track of time.
Brian, if you really wander around in there and see what it's like,
We had a gas leak the other day.
It's just-
Don't-
Yeah.
I told Jeff, this teaching, they brought her back out of retirement. And she says, oh my gosh, I wish I could get into the Horton Street building this year. And unfortunately, that's not gonna happen.
Tell Jim to stick around. Tell Jim to stick around another couple of years. See how that is.
She's got this list, I can't work more than this. But she's already talked to you.
Yeah. We have it outlined.
Nursing programs have a restriction in terms of how many students you have, and in terms of how many staff you have for that.
We can only
number.
run 10 students per clinical site.
And
They need
it
to get
is,
paramedics.
and
of
it's
course.
pretty expensive.
I think
And it doesn't
yeah.
change, and they're not gonna change
I
it.
think the key thing, this whole thing is sharing instructors.
It's our biggest
Yeah,
threat.
with CHC.
that's gonna keep the program going.
I hope so. And that we've identified somebody that may be willing to do that. The other problem, remember, is that the instructors have to have a master's.
Right.
And, you know, what we pay, and then a lot of times they just have to have basically a passion for teaching it, because you can make so much more money in the profession that it's hard to be able to get them. We struggle with it. And it's been way worse with the COVID thing, you can imagine. Now, I mean, you can PRN, you know, they're making like $100 an hour. I mean,
And some of the hospitals have a $10,000 sign-on
Yeah.
bonus.
they do. My oldest, my daughter's an
Yeah.
ER nurse, and my
Okay.
daughter-in-law, and
Because some of my customers are contract nurses.
Mhm.
One is working in Cox Medical in Springfield right now, 4 days a week.
it's crazy, you know, it's just and that, you know, a lot of that PRN will go away, I
Yeah.
think, once some of this settles down, but there's still a huge shortage of nurses and a bigger shortage of nursing faculty. So,
Any more discussion? I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second,
It's been moved and seconded. Julie, would you call for the vote?
Bartlesmeyer,
Yes.
Elliot,
yes.
Fewens,
Yes.
Hart,
Yes.
Holt,
Yes.
Nelson.
Yes.
Item D, consideration of Great Western Dining contract. Great Western Dining is the vendor.
okay, sorry, John. I should have, this is my fault. I should have asked for somebody to take that, to take that off the agenda.
This one, D.
Yes. That, I have 2 draft contracts, a 5-year contract and a 10-year
Yeah,
contract
you
with
mentioned,
them.
yeah.
But I couldn't get the final contract before tonight's meeting, so you'll see it at the next board meeting. I apologize.
Okay.
I should have had you take that off, have somebody move to take that off the agenda. Do we need to officially do that, Julie? I think we do.
I think we'd have to vote to table it.
To table
I think we do have to.
I move we table it.
Okay.
Second.
Thank
Got
you.
it.
It's
Thank
been,
you, Dave.
it's been moved to table the consideration of Great Western Dining contract. It was moved and seconded. So Julie, would you call for the vote?
Holt. Holt,
Oh, yes.
Nelson,
Yes.
Bartlesmeyer,
Yes.
Elliot,
Yes.
Fewens,
Yes.
Hart.
Yes.
Okay, now, administrative updates. Did we already basically do that? I guess I just decided. Do the right thing here. Okay. Is there anything else that you want me to bring up here?
I just had a couple quick because I have to say something. Aggie Days is Friday. And as you know, that's a big day for us here on campus. You know, ag is a little bit of our front porch. That's the way I like to look at it. I can tell you that our ag instructors do an amazing job with this. Sarah Sutton, you know, it's really they work all year getting this together.
Do we overwork them?
Probably, but we don't have a choice. Sarah's one of those people that can't keep templates in the air, as you know. But Aggie Days will bring in a lot of folks, of course, to campus, and it's an opportunity for people to see what we do here. We appreciate all the faculty and staff helping out. It is, the campus is open, but we don't have classes on Aggie Day because it takes so many rooms to host all the different contests that they do. We do have our musical coming up, and just I wanted to give a shout out to maintenance. I tell you, it's been tough on them, the move, because we're getting ready to remodel the rodeo. We have to put the carpet and stuff down. Then we're asking them to get out of Mercy and get that all back cleaned up. They have to put the doorknobs and stuff back down there the way they were, and we'd like to get that done by April 1st, so we're not paying that more $10,000 more for the month of April. They've just, and then they've got to turn around and get ready for Aggie Days, which is Friday, which means the floor has to go back down, and to get ready for the home show, which we're excited to host again this year. And this is, you know, we had it last year, but it's really going to be more open and back to what it was previous to COVID. And the home show will be the 8th and 9th. Along with that goes a kids fair. And so we'll have some stuff for the kids to do out there as well. But you can take a look at that. Graduation is the 14th. I did want to remind people, this is the first year that has been a Saturday graduation. So we're hopeful that the board, second, we've had that before. Okay. See, this is why I have to have these people. Usually Janet never corrects me though. Adam corrects me. Just lets it slide.
Just say that's May the 14th.
May the 14th, and we're hopeful that you can attend, and we will send, if we don't let me forget, we will need to, if you're going to attend, we'll need to get you a cap and gown. So.
Carrie already has them ordered for all of them.
Okay, well, never mind. See, I don't even know what I'm talking about.
And time?
9 and
noon.
noon. I better let Janet answer these questions.
Well, we won't know which degrees are awarded at which ceremony just yet until we get all of the petitions back in and we can kind of look at the numbers and make them even. So the hope is we can fit everybody into a 9 and noon. If we had to do a third ceremony, then we have that time in the afternoon that we could add a third ceremony. But we should know that soon.
Anything else?
No, I'd be happy to answer questions. Otherwise, it completes my report. And John's like, I'm going to Texas. I can get out of here.
That's okay. Not till tomorrow, so. Okay, there's no other discussion. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second. Moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you all.
Thank you, everybody. Sorry, Jason.
Yeah, I remember where I stole them from.